So hello and welcome. It's Marilyn Devonish here from transformationstm.com, and welcome to the Huna and Access Consciousness intro. Thank you so much for joining me, some of you at very, very short notice, because I only gave you about 12 hours for this one. So I really appreciate you being here. And I know many of you will be catching the recording. So thank you for watching. Let's get straight into it. We've got a lot that I want to cover today. So in terms of an overview for this webinar, in terms of why I'm running it and the rationale, we'll talk about that in a few moments. We're going to look at just a very brief introduction to the ancient art of Hawaiian Huna, give you a little bit of the history and background and the illegal background, because that will also answer one of the questions that I get a lot in terms of, well, how is it more people don't know about Huna? We're going to talk about some of the stories of kind of seemingly for us, I think as humans, miraculous transformations that have happened with the Huna energy and also happened with combining the Huna and the Access Consciousness. We're also going to do an introduction to Access Consciousness, because I know that some people would have heard of like the pod and POC, for example, but don't really know the background to that. And also we're going to maybe do a Huna clearing experiential if people to kind of get a sense of that as well. So that's what we have coming up on this webinar. In terms of why this session, I was originally going to do this as part of the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibrations. However, we ran the first part one, the money belief session, this week, and I was like, oh man, as I was thinking about what I might say, I'm like, you know what, I'm not even going to bother, because it just went off, you know, in a whole other direction. The group were very chatty, very interesting, so we had lots of questions, and that used up the time that I would have done the Huna and Access intro. And then last night I thought, well, actually, why don't I just do it as a standalone module, so I can just get on and do what we're going to do in all of the 10 series, and this can be a standalone, so that if people don't know about Huna, if they don't know about Access, if they've never experienced it before, if they want to get a sense of, you know, what you can expect and how it's worked with my clients, then they can watch this as a standalone module, because a lot of the people in the program at the moment are clients, and so they've either experienced Huna in real time in terms of receiving it in a session, or they've attended some of my workshops. So I thought, rather than have them also sit through it, I'll just separate it out and do it as a bonus module. So that's really kind of what we're doing. And then what I'll do is I'll slot this into the 10-part series, because I'm going to put that into one heading. So although you get individual invitations for every webinar that we're running, I'm also going to put it on one banner, so you just go to one login and all of the videos will be there. So that's kind of the rationale for doing this session. In terms of answering, also I'm going to answer some of the questions that I've had about Huna. So what is Huna? What is Access? The question I get a lot about Huna, first off, is it the same as the Huna massage? Because there's a massage of a similar name. So just to answer that one straight off the bat, no, they're completely different. How do they work is another one of the questions. Can the energy clearing make the live sessions? That's a really big question I've had for people who have signed up for the 10-part series, because of course we've got people from Australia, the United States, Canada, Europe, the UK taking part. And so, for example, when we ran the session this time, the person from Australia, it was 4:30 in the morning for them, but they still got up and came on live because they wanted to be there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to vary the timings, but that's probably going to mean one of those time zones will go, oh, it's too late or it's too early. So we'll talk about how the energy travels. Also, one of the questions I get is, what can you use them for? How do you use them in practice? So we'll talk a bit about that. I often get asked, outside of the context of the Raising Your Money Vibration program, what's the connection between Huna and the Ho'oponopono in terms of the words? I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. If that's one that comes up a lot as well. And often people are asking, where can you learn more about Huna? So if you are watching this as a replay, which means you won't have a chance to put your questions into the chat, then you can email me, Marilyn, Marilyn, at transformationstm.com. It's TRANCE. Those are listening rather than looking at the screen. TRANCE, formations, FORMATIONS, TM as in trademark. So Marilyn at transformationstm.com. But if you are watching this webinar, then the email address is on the screen. So that's how you can submit questions outside of this. Actually, for questions, for those of you who are watching it live, you've got the option of the chat, so you can see the open chat, everybody can see what you've written there. You will also have along the top the tab says private, and what that means is that will come if there's something you wanted to ask or you wanted to share. If you use the private tab, that comes just to me and no one else in the chat thread can see that. So that's how you submit your questions. And there's also a Q&A well, so there's chat and Q&A. We tend just to use the chat as, but you know, if people are quite chatty, then I'll say specific questions in the Q&A, and general chat and shares, and oh, I felt this and da da da, and my experience was ABC, then put that in the chat. So however you want to do, and I get a little light, a little light that comes on when you've typed something new. So I'll keep an eye on that. Also, I have close down my Facebook and my email. I will have maybe partway through or towards the end, I'll have a quick look. The reason I've shut it down, it's just too many screens to look at. It's a bit of a distraction, and it sometimes causes a bit of lag on the system as well. But I'll have a little look at my iPad. So my suggestion would be that you use the Q&A so that I'm just looking at one thing. Oh, that's so cool. So guest 180 says they're watching from Oregon on the Pacific coast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so loving the global vibe. That's one of the reasons why this year I decided to transition away from just start transitioning all of my workshops into one day with 3 days, but typically a one-day video webinar training, so that people from around the world can take part. So those are going to be rolling out, continue to roll out rest of this year and beyond. So really, thank you so much for joining me from the Pacific coast. That is marvelous. I love it. So that's kind of what some of the questions. I'm also going to answer a question that I get asked a lot, which was the TCCHE, so the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. I'm the MC and host for that event, and people often ask about the Greg Braden thing and what happened on stage with that event, and also what happened with regards to when I did the Huna. So we'll talk about that one as well. Somebody, Andrew. Oh, hi, Andrew. Oh, you're in Toronto? That is so fantastic. And Pippa, if you're watching this later, Andrew says, good on you for getting up really early. We were so impressed. I'm like, oh my God, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, we bow to you because that's just crazy. And hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. In terms of the program overview, for those of you who are watching it as part of the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibration series, in a nutshell, what we're going to be covering, we're looking at releasing your old money limiting beliefs. So we got the ball rolling with that one this week, one, and the replay is up if you weren't able to join us live. We're going to be looking at things like cutting your genealogical, karmic and ancestral ties, because a lot of the beliefs we hold about money and all that sort of stuff are not necessarily ours. We're going to be doing the Huna and Access consciousness energy clearing at various points during that program, which is why I wanted to give it a bit more time rather than just shoehorning it in as like a 5-minute segment. We're going to look at doing some money oracle and tarot card readings, maybe some past life readings if people feel that some of the energy that they carry comes from there. We're going to do the solar bonds and MP3 download that into. We're going to do some future life progression, ultimate best version of you going out to your abundant future self and seeing what they have to share with you. It's always fascinating. And then there are going to be various guided meditations and bespoke processes. And so in terms of the objective of that, it's really about exploring your relationship with money, more kind of soul and awareness and consciousness around it, uncovering some of those old patterns, changing dichotomies, old paradigms, things that keep you stuck, very much resolving the old limiting beliefs and getting in there and using a load of different processes. So for those of you who are joining us for that, if you haven't maybe looked at the full Eventbrite page, this is just a summary of what we've got coming up. So we did the Clearing Money Beliefs module, we've done that one. And this is, as I said, this week I've put it as part 1, part 2, part 3, so we follow a bit of logic, but they're not necessarily going to be in this order because it's also going to depend on the vibe of the group. And if I get a sense that it's going to be really good to do some life stuff next, we'll do that. If I get a sense that, oh my goodness, we want to jump to some of the soul stuff, we'll do that. It's out at the moment. Part 2 is cutting the ancestral and karmic ties. Part 3 is where we get into looking at the past life stuff and doing some readings around that. The Soul of Money guided meditation, I think that's going to be a good point for it, but that might change as we roll in. clearing negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and the kind of judgments and limitations that people hold is one of the more. We're also going to be, as I said, meeting the version of you, looking a bit more at the Huna energy symbols and doing some chakra clearing and realignment, because there's a really nice process for that. Doing some of the Ho'oponopono cord cutting, because that process in and of itself, I'll talk about it in a bit when I share with you some of the miraculous transformations, and you'll see how that one works. It is just like freakishly mind-blowing. We're going to have a members choice session, because I do a lot of stuff, and so there might be something that you know that I do, or it may be there's a particular thing that's come up with the majority of the group, or it might just be that there's something you want to do in a bit more detail. So we're going to have a members choice session and also a soul blueprint and kind of realigning your money DNA. And so if you want to look at the overview outside of this, go to the www.bit.ly/money vibration, and you'll have all of the information there in terms of the outline and the overview of what we're doing. And then there are the other magical components that of course go into all of my workshops. So that's drawing on the last, at this point, 18.5 years worth of client case studies, processes, the various 20+ modalities that I do. So all of those are going to come into the picture. There's also what my clients call the channeling piece. I don't call it channeling, but I know when people watch it, it actually, I mean, I don't know why I argue with that word. I just don't feel like I'm, people say, oh, channeling. And I don't feel like that in terms of my perception of it, but I know that's the way that it comes to people. So we'll be doing a fair bit of that as well. And we'll also be using it as a think tank. As you guys who already did part one, you were there with the chat. It was just like, wow. And people sharing ideas. And as I was saying to the group, when you clear something for one person, and I found this out when I first started doing the Huna and Access Consciousness on my photo reading workshops. I do it on the first night as a belief session, because I realized, look, it's very easy to read at 25,000 words per minute and photo read a whole book from start to finish in 5 minutes and be able to remember and call what you said. The biggest thing that was getting in people's way was their belief, even in their belief that they can actually do that. And can be that incredible and that limitless. And one of the things I noticed that when I did the clearing for one person over there, the person sitting over there had the benefit of that clearing, even if they didn't come up with that statement, even if it wasn't an issue that they had even consciously thought about. And so there's going to be that think tank energy to it as well. Of course, there's all the other magical stuff that goes into it. And then it's also my intention is to provide you with food for thought. Your brain, it gets your mind working, and you have those realizations, and you have those what I call the light bulb moments and the aha moments. And people started getting those straight off the bat when they signed up for the program, and they were going, oh my God, I've just realized this and I've seen that. And we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. And then as we go through the 10 modules, things will start to kind of fit together, because they're all designed, number one, for the ripple effect, and also to slot in. So that's basically what's coming up as part of the 10-part series. And that's what depending on when you're watching this, I know we've got people signing up at different times, and you might be watching this 5 years in the future. So that's what's coming up if you're just starting the program. Now, module 1, what we did as our recap, we looked at exploring your beliefs about money. We started to uncover some of those ancestral and genealogical beliefs. We looked at your unconscious money script. That was just brilliant in terms of what people were coming up with. We looked at the whole myths of money and receiving and how that can inadvertently be blocking your flow. We did started with the first of the belief change sessions, and you've got your home play to do as well. So, and remember about, if you haven't yet got the journal, make sure you get that. So in terms of this webinar now, first thing I'd like to know is a little bit about you, if you're happy to share. So I'd like to know, first of all, why did you sign up for this webinar? And so part 2 of that is kind of, okay, maybe it's in terms of what did you want to know, what do you want to learn, what do you most want to take away from today? So if you want to type that into the chat or the Q&A, that would be brilliant. And also, how will you know when whatever it is you're going for, how will you know when you've achieved it? So really, and that just gives me a starting point in terms of, okay, where do we maybe put a bit more emphasis, or it might be there's something I wasn't thinking of talking about today that may be relevant for you. So type that in, that would be great. And it might just be that you've typed up out of curiosity, in terms of you just want to know a bit more. Oh, Andrew says, always great to listen and learn from you. Oh, thank you, Andrew. And so with regards to that one, it might be just as simple as, that when I talk about the food for thought, it might be that it provides you with some food for thought. It may be that you've been thinking about, that suddenly it kind of sparks. And also what people often find is there might be something they've been working on, pondering over, wanting to sort out, not really necessarily linking it between the two of these things, and then suddenly something comes up on the webinar, or I share something, a concept or an idea, or somebody else something in the chat, and suddenly that sparks off a load of other stuff. So I would just say be open in terms of that as well. So for those of you I haven't met before, because I know when I looked at the list, and I've also set this up so that people can come in anonymously as well, because I know money is often one of those subjects that is a little bit emotive for people, and there are names on the list I don't recognize. So for those I haven't met before, as I said, my name's Marilyn Devonish, a very traditional background. I did a business studies degree, a postgraduate marketing diploma with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, was all set to become a chartered accountant with the ACCA. And one of the things, I was also very shy, terrified of public speaking, to the point it was difficult to even speak to my own family. And I used to talk to people looking down like that, rather than being able to look them in the eye. And I was doing a piece of freelance work, organizing the speakers for a big event at that Kensington Olympia. And one of my speakers, I don't know, we got into a conversation about Reiki, actually. And I said to her, I'm going to do a Reiki session. I didn't know about it as a modality in and of itself, but somebody had said, oh, Reiki is good for relaxation. And I was stressed out of my head. And she said, oh, my mum's a Reiki teacher. And we just got talking, and about then the stress and what's going on, and just stuff came out. She said, well, actually, with regards to your confidence, communication skills, there's a particular course that we send our coaches and trainers and consultants on. And she gave me the details. I didn't really think that much of it, just said NLP and wrote a number down and the name of a company. And a couple of weeks later, I phoned them up, and it was very late in the evening, so I wasn't really expecting anyone to be there to answer the phone. And a guy called Paul Vernon answered the phone. And so we get into this massive conversation. I find myself signing up for this practitioner course, which I thought was a communication skills course. And then a couple of days later, when the joining instructions arrived and all the course materials, I realized I'd signed up for NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, and this other thing as a sideline, Huna, straight on the phone. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. I need a refund. This isn't what I agreed to. I thought I was doing a communication skills and yada, yada, yada. And so I tried to get a refund. They wouldn't give me a refund, but they said, come to the training. If it doesn't provide you with massive value, blah, 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 your refund. And I was thinking, right, now I've got to sit there for 7 days. 7 days out of my diary. I'm doing my chartered accountancy exams. The exams, I think, were 3 weeks away, because this was in the course was in the October, and if I'd done the master practitioner, the November/December, and my exams were in December. So now I'm really quite angry that I have to go into London every day and waste my time. But there was a tipping point where I thought, oh God, if I just sit here moaning and just going, this is rubbish, there's no way that, waving your hand about or doing symbols is going to change anything. And there's no way you can talk about your problems and just have them disappear. And so I was like that for the first 3.5 days. And I thought, oh, if I carry on with an attitude like this, they're going to just quite rightly say you didn't play full out, because that was a thing they kept going on about, and playing 100%. And they're going to say you didn't do any of that, so therefore you're not entitled to a refund. I thought there's several £1,000s. It's like £2,500-3,000, whatever it was back then. This was in October 2000. So I thought, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do every single exercise, and I'm going to volunteer for everything. Throw myself into it so that I can absolutely prove to you all that this is rubbish. And this is a load of nonsense, and I tried my best and it didn't work for me. That was my master plan. As you can see from the list, if you're watching the webinar, I then became a certified practitioner, a master practitioner of NLP, hypnosis and timeline therapy. I also became a certified trainer of NLP, hypnosis and timeline therapy. I became a life and executive coach, went out to Hawaii several times to study Huna, because I was just so blown away with what happened when I first volunteered, to be facetious. We'll talk about that one in a minute. I then, did a number of other modalities over the last 18 and a half years. So things like EFT, DNA theta healing, future life progression, tarot. I'm a soul plan reader, archetypal profiling, you name it, is probably in there somewhere now. And of course, the photo reading was something that also changed my life. And when I started to combine the Huna with that was just mind blowing as well. And outside of that, when I'm not doing the esoteric stuff, I also work as a trainer and management consultant and something called a Prince 2 project manager. If you work in central and local government, which is what I specialize in, you'll know what that is. If you don't worry about it. And also running, trainings, seminars, speaking at industry events, etc. So a little bit about me, how I got started. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about personal development per se, regardless of the modality, is that when I came into personal development, I was suicidal. In September 2000, I considered committing suicide. As far as ringing the Samaritans to talk it through and discuss my plans, and within a couple of weeks everything had changed and transformed, hence the name Transformations, because I was blown away by how miraculous the transformation was. And I went from I can barely speak to my own family to, for goodness sake, does this woman ever stop talking? So that's why I'm so passionate about personal development, in terms of what it can do when you just kind of let go and throw into it and sign up and make the decision and make the commitment. And it's that all that, and I heard people talk about that before and basically used to roll my eyes because with the business studies degree and wanting to be a chartered accountant, well, I didn't really want to be a chartered accountant, but that's a whole other story. But with that sort of background, this was alien to me, and so it was a real revelation about how much and how powerfully your life can change. And I was, and I know people often go, well, but my starting point was very different. One of the things I've also been doing since about 2002 is writing for newspapers and magazines and journal, oftentimes about emotional health and well-being, but also on some kind of specialist subjects as well. I love doing that because it's also a way to kind of share ideas with people, and some of those articles have been catalysts for many of the other things that have happened in my life thus far. So with regards to some of the things I love, and what we're going to talk about energy in this webinar. I'm going to maybe call it the vortex, for example. And this is an example of one of those things. I was saying to a friend of mine, lovely, some of you know Gina, and years ago, I was like, oh man, I'd love to write a book, but I can't be bothered. I'd just like to just write a chapter in someone else's book. As just a throwaway line. I was then going to stay with her 2 days later. As I'm leaving, I get an email from Paul Sheely, the guy who created photo reading. And he's like, Marilyn, there's a book project coming up. I think great for it. Are you interested? I said, oh, what's it about? And he said, oh, I'll send you the contract. I'll send you the details over. So I'm like, all right. And I knew I was leaving the house in half an hour. So I get the contract through and get the details in. And the first thing I see is stories of transformation. I was like, oh my God. I was almost like, I'm in. Then Paul was saying, oh, people like Tony Robbins are going to be in it. He's in it, of course. The now late Dr. Wayne Dyer, Chun-Yi Lin, the creator of Spring Forest Qigong, Brian Tracy, someone I'd always admired from a business point of view. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And so, but that was, and I got to Gina's house, and this was in the days where the minute you picked up the phone, it was like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching in terms of running up a bill. And so Paul said, okay, speak to the editor. You need to ring him up. Here's a number. So I got to Gina's house. She opened the door, your phone. She's like, of course you can. I went, I got to ring America. She's like, no problem. So that's how this one came about, with those, energetic vibes where you say the words and then something incredible happens. And for those who might be kind of thinking it's all right for you, that the profile screen now, so lacking in confidence, low self-esteem, left, right and center, limiting my own potential. That was me right up until the age of 32. And at that point, if you had said to me it was possible to change those things, I would have said, no, it's not. It's set in stone. I would have said, that's just the way I am. I'm naturally very quiet. I'm naturally very shy. And any of you who have done MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, if you know about that, I'm off the chart introvert. I still am. That's not a problem. But what I learned with personal development and all of this cool stuff is that you can be yourself and open up different facets of yourself. I was also, the way I described it, as living life as a spectator, where I'm on the outside looking in. So I'm watching everyone else having friends, making connections, being in the world, and I'm on the outside looking in. And I was also physically and emotionally drained, where I was sleeping 12 to 15 hours a day, and I was still just exhausted to the point where one night, me and my then partner are out to dinner with Sam and Phil, two friends. They'd invited us out, and I said, I don't really want to go. I'm going to be tired. And Shane says, come on, it'll be fun night. I was like, okay. So we're out to dinner. They put desserts out, and I'd ordered a trifle, one of my favorite things. And I had that thing, like the nodding dog, where I did that. And I nearly fell asleep. And Sam and Phil were like, oh my God, are you all right? Shane was like, just carried on eating because he'd seen it all the time. I'd be in conversation while just gone. And I said, I get really tired. And that's when they got it. That wasn't just somebody who, everybody says, I'm a bit tired, but it was like seriously tired. And part of that process in turning that around, because I was like that for nearly 3 years, to the point where I'd given up I used to work for an investment bank in the city, ABN AMRO, just across from Liverpool Street Station. Gave that up because I just could not do that, because I wanted to then study as well. So my plan, work during the day, study at night. Previously, that would have been no problem, because when I did my degree, I pretty much worked full time and did a full-time degree. And I mean, seriously worked. I worked for investment banks. I worked for the Harris and House of Fraser Group in their cash office, in their accounts department, in their export department. And so it's serious jobs. And I was a PA in terms of secretary, shorthand, you name it. I was director's PA for a lot of the banks in Colmore Row in Birmingham, for those of you who are familiar with the UK. So serious work. And I could barely get the energy to go just to do one job, let alone a ton of jobs, and study for a business studies degree. So eventually gave up work just to focus on the studying. That didn't help either. It just gave me more time to sleep. So I absolutely know it is possible to turn around even the most crazy of situations, and which is why I still to this day love what I do. So let me just have a read of this before we get into the Huna Foundations. So guest 980 says, I'm watching because I was really blown away by your photo reading info. Oh, that's so cool. And how Huna helps it all. I'm interested in Huna clearing for money manifestation. I suspect there are ancestral healings I need. I've done everything else I think of to clear it. Also, my intellect can only conclude that something in my core seems to be that I unconsciously didn't feel worthy. So I'd like to get through help with some of those beliefs. Thank you. Right, what I'm going to do, because I'll put that into the mix, we'll just have a little play later, is just give me a minute. I think the chat does save after the webinar, but just in case, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to put it into a document so that I can refer back to that. What is today? It's the 20th, isn't it? God, time flies. Webinar. And let me put that there just so I have a future reference. We're going to create an access consciousness clearing statement out of that for you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much, guest 980. I very much appreciate it. So Huna Foundations, let's get into that first of all. And a couple of things we're going to start with. Shared with me when I went out to Hawaii to study Huna, and I pretty much include them in all of my trainings, regardless of whether I'm doing a training about Prince 2 project management, communication skills, emotional intelligence, critical thinking and decision making, or Huna, access consciousness, tarot, whatever. Doesn't matter what the training is. I pretty much always include this slide now, because for me it was a game changer, and it released me also from having to think, oh my God, everything's got to be perfect, everything's got to be right, and this is better, it's like, man, it freed me up. And also one of the things that when I did the training that Matt and Tad James asked of people as well, which we agreed to, so I'll be asking the same of you. So in terms of this saying, which I absolutely love, it says, think not that all wisdom is in your school. What that means is your school, your modality, so NLP, hypnosis for me, timeline therapy, EFT, DNA theta healing, past life regression, future life regression, archetypal profiling, soul plan reading, you name it. We could put any modality. Reiki which is what I first started with when I did my Reiki practitioner training, probably about 21 years ago. Doesn't matter what the modality is, put whatever name into that mix you like. You might think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm not saying it isn't, but that's probably not the only way to do doing. And so what I loved about this was they were saying, look, Huna is ancient. It's been 1,000 years as far as we know. It's incredible. It's amazing. It actually is the underpinnings for a lot of the modern stuff you see now. We'll talk about the correspondences in a few moments. And even with all its greatness, even with all its wonderful correspondences, even with all of the wonderful things and processes and modalities that are part of it, it's still not the be all and end all. So think not that all wisdom is in your school. What I always say to my clients, what I say to my students, if it floats your boat, that's great. Take it on board. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's great. Put it to one side, go and find something else that does. So, to open with that. And it was Uncle George when I was out in Hawaii. First time I went out was in 2005 and went out again in 2009 to do Huna level 2. And this is one that Uncle George used to say when he was doing his tour. Such a cool dude, not what you would expect when you see him. So that's the first thing. Second thing that they asked of us is they were saying, I will not represent myself beyond the level to which I've been taught. So when I'm teaching something like Huna, I always look, this is an introduction. This is to give you an overview. This is information for you. It's not information that you've been then going out and teaching to other people and all that sort of stuff, and taking it and inserting it into something else. And one of the things Matt and Tad James always used to say is, by all means, talk about Huna, tell people about it, and tell them where you got the information from, so that people can then come and learn about it properly. So if you want any further information, I've already given you my email address. If you want information about either the one-day in-person Huna workshop that's going to be running, if you're watching this in real time, that's running next month, a couple of weeks time, and there's also a one-day video webinar version that I ran a couple of weeks ago, so you can get the replay of that and take the whole workshop from home. So the website for that at the moment is www.hunaintro.eventbrite.com. So if there's stuff that you like that we're sharing and people go, oh my god, that's really cool, just Devonish, go and find her. So that's that one as well. Cool. And if this were a real workshop, I say show of hands if that's okay, but of course you're all on a video webinar. Actually, you can put yes, type yes into the chat if that's okay. Also, making the most of this session, definitely a willingness to play, go with the flow. I mean, seriously, when I first did the practitioner training, I was totally not going with the flow. I was questioning everything. I was second guessing everything. I was actually poo-pooing everything. I was rubbishing everything. In my mind, I thought, well, that can't be possible. Well, that will never work. Well, that, it was like, oh my God. And I say, that's probably not the best way to get most out of these trainings, particularly when it's esoteric stuff and it might be things that you've never thought about or considered before. I definitely say participate, and that's going to be one of the provisos for getting the most out of the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibration series, because part of what we do, and in terms of the way that I design the processes and I decide exactly what we're going to do, is based on your interaction and what it is you're saying. So not so crucial now because this is just the standalone, but if you're watching this as part of a 10-part series and you're going to be joining us live, some or all of it, then definitely your participation is key, because that's where some of the energy comes from. And then once we have that energy rolling, other things will kind of be downloaded. And also have an open mind, because when you do that, I see this work like a magic potion bottle, which it can be firmly closed, so all the good stuff is just going to stay in there. But when you have an open mind and a willingness to play, it's almost like you take the lid off, and then all of that wonderful stuff starts coming forth. And with the longer 10-part program, as you probably have got by now, even if this is the first time you see me, I've got a lot of stuff to share. I've got a lot of stuff to say. And as we all do in our various fields and disciplines and areas of expertise, we know a lot of stuff. I can't possibly tell you everything I know. However, what I can do is share with you the stuff that is most relevant but I'm only going to do that if you ask me about it. I'm only going to do that you're interacting, because if you don't, I'm not going to know. So I'm just going to tell you what I plan to tell you, and I'm going to have to trust that that is going to resonate. But the way you're going to get most out of the wider program is to participate, is to share, and definitely have an open mind. So, you know, keep that one in mind as we go throughout, not just today, but the 10-part series. So first off then, what is Hawaiian Huna? The version of Huna that I was taught, I was out in the Big Island called Kona. They said that Huna dates back 35,000 years. And it is about physical and mental and emotional well-being, and it's all of healing. One of the things that surprised and delighted me when I really kind of got into studying Huna, the word magic is in their everyday lexicon. It is in the fabric of everything. For us in the West, Potter has normalized it a bit, but it's still the magic wands. And we did a whole segment training on the assumptions. It's actually a really big segment, way bigger than Hot, even though some of Huna magic, but many of them have at least, you know, inkling about in terms of the word a believer are related to. But it's old. Like every December called the Mind, Body, Spirit, Energy Fest. We're looking at them, all of those things into a lot. When I kind of got into Huna, now when my God, it really almost designed for heard of it before, know about it. I suspect one of the reasons for that is Huna was outlawed and it was illegal from the 1820s to, and that's a long time. Sorcery Act that overturned in 1979. I was born in 1968, so you know, kind of in part of my lifetime, this thing that we're talking about now was illegal. Because when the Hawaiians were colonized by the Bostonians in the 1820s, they looked at the native people of Hawaii. They didn't understand what they were doing. For them, it did seem like witchcraft, black magic, all of that sort of stuff. And so rather than understand it, they just decided to outlaw it and ban it. And so for those of you who are on the webinar earlier, in the 15 minutes before we start, the Huna chants, which, oh my God, even when I listen to the CD, they're kind of deep and visceral. And when you're singing, you've got people doing the singing, you've got the tiki torches, which is how they do the induction for the invoking the Huna guides, what you call your avaiku. It's just amazing. It just like, oh my God, it just resonates in your soul. And so one of the things that happened with Huna is the knowledge was hidden in the chants, and the knowledge was hidden in the dancing, because the Bostonians didn't mind the natives, you know, singing and dancing. They let them do that, a bit like, you know, some of the way that the meaning of tarot was hidden in the pictures and the cards. So they didn't mind them letting them sing and dance, but like the slavery. When you listen to some of those slavery songs, they are deep and they just, you know, resonate. And they didn't mind the slaves singing and dancing because they just deemed that to be, you know, nonsense. But what the Hawaiians did is they hid the knowledge in the chants, they hid the knowledge in the music, and they hid the knowledge in the dance. So when you see real Huna dancing, every little movement of the hands and the feet and the posture and the body, it all means something. It tells a story. And it works with energy, it works with symbols, it works with the elements and what they call the elementals. And very much they have their series of, so Pele, for example, is one of the Huna gods, Uli is another one, and very much a lot of it is related to the elements and being more connected to and respectful of and working in harmony with Mother Earth. So a little bit about the kind of the background of it there in terms of its origins and maybe why people don't know much about it. One of the things that I absolutely loved when I first went out we did a session on Huna correspondences, and this comes back to think not that all wisdom is in your school. And so let's just say, for example, I've just pulled out a few. Reiki, for example, for those who've done Reiki, works with energy healing, works with symbols, as does Huna. The Maori Native American tradition works a lot with dream time, as does Huna. Egyptian magic works with the 4 elements, the 5 elements, as does Huna. You can see where I'm going with this now. The Hermetic traditions work with the guardian spirits, as Huna. In Huna, you call them the Avaiku. So when I'm working with clients and let's say doing breakthrough coaching sessions, in between sessions, I will say, is it okay to send my Huna guys over to do X, Y, Z, or to help you with ABC? They'll go, yeah. And it's the Avaiku that I send over to help with that work. Chinese disciplines, you know, for example, work with herbs. So when we went out to Hawaii, there's big ceremonies we do. We really wonderful days spent trekking up into the volcanoes to make offerings to the gods, and all of that was in these big like kind of rice leaves and putting all of the herbs in and making the traditional sacred offerings to the gods. Qigong, for example, works with the breath. Any of you who have heard me talk about the Huna Ha breathing, everything, I mean, pretty much everything in centers around the breath. And things like astrology, as above so below, very much also the same with Huna. And even things like feng shui, where they're working with the air, the water, you know, all of the elements, that is a very, very big part of Huna. And in terms of the breathing and the breath, one of the things that the Hawaiian said is like and it sounds very basic, but when you think about it, you're like, actually that's true. You can't fault them for that logic. They said the main difference between someone who's alive and who's dead is the breath. If, for example, you get a mirror, someone who's no longer of this earth, you get a mirror, put it over their mouth and their nose, it's not going to steam up. Somebody who's alive, and even if they're sleeping very peacefully, they'll occasionally, and as soon as they do that, the mirror is going to fog up because there's breath, there's life force energy, what the Hawaiians called mana energy. And so they then figured out, well, given that that's one of the key indicators and key differences between someone who's alive and someone who's not, therefore the breath must be very important. So when I'm doing, for example, the Huna symbols, in the days, it's only recently, I'd say it's in the last, 6 to 8 months I've started doing webinars, because I didn't have a platform that was stable enough previously. So I would do teleseminars where you're listening in on the phone, or you're online as we are now, but you're listening to a link, so you can't see anything. There's just a voice coming through your speakers. So people would know of the Huna symbols in terms of hearing me do them, but all they would hear is and what I'm doing on the other end of the phone is drawing the symbols on the breath. So you go, you draw the symbols on the breath and you deliver them on the breath, because the breath really is the life force energy, and that's how the symbols get translated. So those are just some of the Huna correspondences in terms of maybe how it fits with modalities and disciplines. And so there was never a fight about my modality is better than your modality. It's like, we're doing the same thing, but you call it chi and I call it mana. Cool. You call it guardian spirit, I call it avaiku. Brilliant, you know. And so that made me, when I learned about it, I was like so chilled. I'm like, brilliant. And that's the way I see life. That's often the way I see religion. That's even the way I see politics. When you strip everything back and you strip it down, often talking about the same thing, they just have very different names for it. And so I'm like, you know what, I really can't waste much time fighting over whose one is the best, because we're probably all talking about the same thing anyway, or something very similar. So that's the Huna correspondences in a nutshell. And just in terms of processes, and we're not going into these today, but if any of you are joining me for the one-day workshop, or if you're retrospectively purchasing the one-day Huna video webinar, which means that you can watch the one-day workshop whenever you choose from the comfort of your own home, then these are some of the things that we are talking about in terms of the active heart breathing. Waking meditation is one of my favorite things. It's the way that I kind of keep calm even when the world is going a little bit crazy. The Ahi fire ritual, that's a really cool one. We talked about that on the webinar. The assumptions of karma, the Huna elementals, how you work with the symbols. We talked about the assumptions of Huna magic, because they're a really big part of it. And when you get those, oh wow, it just opens up a whole new world. Prime directives of the Ampua, which is the higher self. Took the group through some higher self therapy processes. looked at the meaning of some of the words that we commonly associate with Hawaii, things like aloha, and even the meaning of the word Huna, Hawaiian, ho'oponopono sort of thing. We definitely look at ho'oponopono, and I take you through the bigger version of that, because the version I learned out in Hawaii had nothing to do with the words. It's actually a process which involves the Huna symbols, it involves the avaiku, involves the blaze of light, it involves invoking the kind of metaphorical state. There's a lot to it. So, you know, we talk about that and we do that, and I take you through that on the workshop. And also then looking at the 3 cells and how they relate to the Huna gods and how they relate to the elementals and all of that sort of thing. So if you wanted more information about that, go to www.huna, Huna, hunaintro.eventbrite.com, and you're getting to join us for the 1-day workshop. If you're watching this in real time, that will be in a week's time, or you can purchase the 1-day Huna workshop as a video webinar. So it's delivered very much like this, where the slides are the main thing you see, and then there's a video presentation from me. Cool, hang on. So I was going to say if there are any questions, but I see a little private bubble on. So let me just do that. Okay, cool. And with regards to that, one of the things you can do is you can refresh your connection. You know, the little kind of not quite complete circle, the little arrow. If you do a refresh, that will often sort that out, and it just brings you straight back into the webinar. Cool. So that is that in terms of some of the components of Huna and what makes the bigger picture of that. And my first experience of Huna magic, where I really started to, I went from yada, yada, yada to, oh my God, there's something in this. When I was on the NLP training, the guy who was running the training asked for a volunteer. He has an issue with someone. It's causing you a problem. Might be a relationship dynamic, a problem, something that's happened, maybe an area to do with forgiveness, because ho'oponopono is also known as the forgiveness process. And so I shot my hand up in the air because I was still sort of on the fence of being a little bit facetious, trying to find loopholes and trying to find as much proof and evidence and gather as much proof and evidence as it didn't work, and it was all alone. So I volunteered. So he says, okay, think of the person you've got the problem with. So I sat in the room. I'm like, there's like 75, 80 people there. So I'm sat in the room. I'm thinking about the person. Didn't tell him anything about it. I just thought about the person. And then he carried on teaching the class. About 15 minutes later, he said, how you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean how I'm doing? You haven't done anything. So I said, oh, fine. Carries on teaching the class. You know, 15, 20 minutes later, looks at me again and said, how are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm the same. What do you want me to say? He carries on teaching the class. This goes on for like 45 minutes, an hour. And then eventually, before we get into the next segment, so probably an hour, hour and a half has passed by this time, he looked at it again and said, how are you doing? How are you doing now? And I was just about to go off into one and go, well, you haven't done anything. What do you mean how I'm doing? And then I just suddenly thought, you know what? I actually feel calmer about this person. I don't have the same angst around it. I don't have the same, what I would have said is frustration and annoyance, because I didn't really identify with anger. Yeah, I soon found that out in the timeline therapy exercise. It's a whole other story. And so but I reasoned that the reason I felt calm about them, I said, well, it's probably because he's made me think about them for an hour and a half. So he's desensitized me. That's probably all that's happened. So didn't really think about it anymore. Got home that evening, it was a voicemail from them. The reason that was significant to me is because one of the problems was they would never call me. But people would say to them, oh, how's Marilyn? They'll go, oh, and I'd be thinking, have you not got hands? Have you not got fingers? Why don't you occasionally pick up the phone and call me? Why do I always have to chase around after you? And that was the thing I used to get really annoyed about that. And so the fact they left a voicemail, my immediate thought was, oh my God, what's happened? There must be some disaster. So I ring them up, and I hadn't told them that I was doing the AP training because I'm in the middle of my ACCA exams. It was the last but one set of exams before you take your finals. So I thought, so I hadn't told them I was doing, because I thought the minute I say I'm going off to do an NLP course in hypnosis, they would do what they always do. Oh my goodness, why don't you focus on one thing? When are you going to settle down and decide what you want to do with your life? Why are you doing? And I thought, I can't be doing with the lecture. So I phoned them up and I said, is everything all right? And they went, yeah. So I'm now thinking, what do you call for? So I'm like, oh, okay, well, you left a voicemail. And you went, oh, yeah, I just want to see how you were doing. At this point, I went, this is the receiver. I went, and there was a program when I was growing up called Different Strokes. And the catchline was, what are you talking about, Willis? It was one of these moments. Some of you have to be of a certain age to know what I'm talking about. So she then goes on, she says, where have you been? And I said, oh, I was out today. Doing what? I was like, oh God. So I thought, okay, I was on a course. Now that should be enough to satisfy her because she knows I'm studying to be an accountant. No, she's a lawyer. It goes further. What course? I'm like, oh God. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to lie, because if you lie, you just get yourself tied up in all sorts of knots. So I then took a deep breath and I thought, I'm going to go with the most outrageous thing to think of. And I went, hypnotherapy. And then I waited for the onslaught and the barrage and the lecture. And she went, oh, do you think hypnosis would help me with the twins and the morning sickness? At which point I went back into class the next day and I says, look, you know the person I was focusing on yesterday? And they went, yeah. I went, she's been abducted by an alien, because that was the most logical explanation I could think of to explain what happened. I was just like, I cannot even get my head around that conversation. And sure enough, the following weekend, because I had a week and a bit between the practitioner and then deciding to sign up for the master practitioner, I went round to the house. I'm distinctly remember the house in Vauxhall. She's lying on the bed. She's massive because she's pregnant with twins. This could even be one of the original pendulums, because I found it in my handbag the other day. It's in two pieces now, but that's the top half that you hold. This is the bottom half. It's like in the lining of an old handbag. So this could very well be the pendulum, but it's a pendulum very mumuch like this one. I'm standing over her. She's lying on the bed in the upstairs bedroom, and I'm over the bump saying, is it a girl and a boy? It was like, is it a boy and I'm doing all the combinations, boy and a girl and a boy, two boys, two girls, blah, blah, blah. And it kept, every time you said a girl, and it was a no. Every single time said two boys or a boy and a boy, the pendulum was like a big yes. She's laughing because she knew what she was having. None of us knew until she actually gave birth. And sure enough, it was trying to get goosebumps when I think about that one. But I was like, oh my God, what just happened there? He didn't know who she was, didn't know her name. I didn't give any details about her. She was nowhere in the vicinity. She was wherever she was. And still, it had that miraculous effect. And that is when I started thinking, do you know what? There is something in this. There is some power here that I'm not seeing. And then when, of course, I started using it with my own clients, they were what I call the miraculous transformations. One of the first times I got the power that you can use this remotely, even though I knew that. I know that, energy is energy. It just travels, it just moves. It's kind of, in many respects, I mean, there is the Curlian photography where you can photograph the aura and the hands and that sort of thing, but essentially in terms of the naked eye, it's formless and we can't necessarily see it. Although that said, I have got friends who see the flow of energy. And so on this occasion, probably this was around 2003, 2004, maybe around that sort of time, I had been on client site all day working for DFT for transport as a project manager, managing a part of a team, managing a big remote working, flexible working project that we were implementing for the whole of the kind of department for transport across the UK. So I've been on site all day, came home, I was writing a proposal. I think that proposal was something like for FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, because to get those pieces of work, you've got to write a tender proposal. So I'm writing this massive tender, and they're like, some of these things run to 150,000 words. So I've been in the office all day. I'm writing a tender. I think even that day I might have even had a breakthrough coaching client in the evening, and they, people used to come round, and I do sessions at a therapy centre not far from here. And I get a phone call from a friend. She's crying, distressed, and she's phoning up. She said, I want to say goodbye because I'm going to commit suicide, and I just want to thank you for being my friend. I was like, oh, great. So I was like, okay, could you possibly commit suicide tomorrow night instead of tonight? Because I'm working at the moment. If it's okay with you, tonight I'm going to send the Huna guides over to help you. Is that okay? Can you delay the suicide until tomorrow? She says yes. So hangs up the phone. I carry on working. I probably worked till about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, right, I must do the Huna. I went upstairs. I just fell asleep. I wake up bolt upright about 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, oh my God, I didn't do the Huna. So I'm sat in bed. I'm thinking of my friend, and I'm sat in bed, and I'm holding an image of her in my mind. And I'm going, I go back to sleep. Fine. Next morning, I get up at 8 o'clock, put the emails on. There's a message from her. I'm like, oh, good, she's still alive. She hasn't committed suicide. Great. I open the email and she says, hi, Marilyn, want to apologize for yesterday. So sorry, had too much to drink. I've been feeling really bad. Haven't been eating, haven't been sleeping since the relationship breakup a few months ago. And I just had a really low point and just got drunk and was feeling depressed. And I said, no problem. She then says, this is the part where you tell me you didn't do anything. But last night, and then she goes on to recount what happened to her at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Number one, I was like, oh my God, that's the time I woke up and said to my Avaiku, please go over and help and let's send some energy. So now I'm like, oh my God, I got the goosebumps and the hair standing up on the back of my neck. And then she says, I felt really peaceful, I felt really calm, and it's the best night's sleep I've had it. And I was like, oh my God, as she described it, those were the symbols, and that was the energy that I sent over to her. And so that was one of those like Twilight Zone moments where I suddenly thought, okay, this isn't in my imagination, because in her drunken stupor, number one, I was in London, she lived, I'm sorry, I was in Watford, she lives in South London. Seriously, how is she gonna, how do you explain that? And I was just like, oh my God. And so that was my first really big sort of reminder that this stuff has power when you use it remotely. I've also, one of the questions I got about the 10-part series and also about the Huna workshop is, does and will the energy carry and translate over even if you can't make it live? Listening to the recording, be that a couple of hours later, couple of weeks later. I've had people ring me up and send me emails, say, oh, I really want to thank you for the process. I downloaded it from the free resources page on your website. I saw, which process is that? First time it happened, I'm like I recorded that like 5 years ago. People were listening to it 5 years later and having exactly the same impact and reaction and change and transformation as the people who were there live on the recording. And bearing in mind, were physically there in the same room, they were on the end of a telephone line or in cyberspace. And this is something that happened recently, and this is the lovely Pippa, who is the wonderful lady who got up at 4 a.m. To join us live this week. And Pippa did I was testing out a new process. So oftentimes with my e-newsletter, when I've got a new idea, I've got a new process, you guys who are on the list will know it anyway, I will go out and I'm saying, look, I'm going to be running a bonus session, it's free of charge, I'm looking for volunteers, if you've got an hour or two and you can give me some feedback, yada yada yada. So Pippa was one of the people who volunteered. She wasn't able to do it live for time constraint reasons and time zones, but I sent her the recording. She listened to the recording a few days later, and this is the email that she sent me that she's given me permission to share. And she said, initially my third eye and my throat and heart center and solar plexus all felt compressed, and it felt uncomfortable to say the least. After the first round, I sensed the image of a triangle of fire. It was at that point when I read it, I stopped and I got goosebumps again. I'm like, is she kidding me? Because this was a tele-seminar. So people either dialed in by phone or they listened to a link. They couldn't even see me. And I stopped at that point. I was like, oh my God, because I saw the triangle of fire first. Hang on, if I've queued this up right, there you go. That's the triangle of fire. Nobody, you guys will know, even the people who've been training with me for 15, 17 years, I rarely showed you the Huna symbols. All you would hear was nobody, even a seasoned Huna master, could tell what that symbol was from that. We all draw it differently, we all have different rates and paces, and they all sound exactly the same. So when she talked about the red triangle, I'm like, are you kidding me? Then she talked about but what she said before that, the energy feeling compressed, and also further on. And as she kind of, as I read it, I thought she is describing everything that I did, and in the order and sequence that I did it, because the thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake. And many people, if they're sensitive to energy, they feel it as a pushback. They almost feel a jolt. And so she felt that. She described that when she said about the compression. It was uncomfortable. Then the fire energy I used to burn away the blockages, if you want to put it that way. She felt that. She then said during and after the second round, I felt pain being drawn out of my body via my heart center. That's where I use the symbol. That in terms of that symbol, it's the symbol which is two circles. I'll flash it up again in a moment, and that I use that in the heart center to open it up, and then I'm pulling out the old energy. That was verbal. All everybody heard was I don't say what I'm doing when I'm doing the Huna, I'm just doing it. So now I'm kind of blown away and I'm reading it with more intrigue. And then I was like, okay, shut the front door, take several seats, I'm done. She then says, I slowly began to feel lighter. My heart center opened up more than previously, and I felt like I was glowing from the inside out, as if the light, and she says, as I'm typing the phrase, as if the light soul is now able to shine through my heart center comes to mind. At that point, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Because one of the symbols I then used after the slam and the opening things up and the fire was the wave of light that makes you gasp. And I'll show you a picture again in a few moments. And it's like having the light of the sun radiating from the inside out. And it's just like, oh my God, Pippa, you have got no idea. And then she said the third round gave me a sense my heart center is expanding into the universe, and I now have a sense of feeling more open. And at that point I'm like, dear Lord, give me strength, because I can't even believe what I'm reading. Because then I did a symbol of the crown chakra, which opens it up, and I also, there's a symbol that is called light pours forth through the front of the head. And so she's now describing the opening up of the third eye, which I did, and also the open up the crown chakra. So in answer to the question, does the energy travel? Can you still get the benefit if you're watching a recording, even if you're watching it 5-10 years later? That's the very long version of saying yes, you can. And so it just completely blew my mind. So that's the kind of the triangle of fire that she saw. That's the one that opens up the energy, which I used over the heart chakra for everyone in the group. And that's the way gas, which is about the sun radiating from the inside out. So just kind of really, mind-blowing stuff. I also had a lovely client, guy called David Key. He was having a problem with a neighbor, and so we're doing some coaching. One day he's driving, he pulls over and says, it's the last straw. And what had happened was the neighbor had left a rusty car on his driveway, partly on David's drive. So now he has to move, he's getting in and out. But when he had visitors, they couldn't park where they would normally park in front of his driveway. So they then had to park a little bit further. And now they're kind of on the neighbor's driveway. The neighbor would then come out and start an altercation, shouting and arguing, all the rest of it. And David said, it's getting to the point where it might even come to blows at some point. I just can't take it anymore. Is there anything we can do about shifting the energy in terms of how I'm feeling about this? So pulls over. He's on his mobile phone somewhere on the motorway. I'm here in my office in Watford, and I'm doing a version of Ho'oponopono and doing the Huna energy and cutting the ties. He carries on. Next day, his wife opens the door. She says, David, come here. She's like, oh, what now? And he's thinking it's going to be some other thing, because this rusty car, it's leaking oil onto his lovely driveway. He comes to the door. Anna's standing there. The car's gone. She says to him, because he told her about, the session the day before, the impromptu session. And he said, he phones up and he says, Anna thinks you're a white witch. And then he explained the car's gone and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Now, I don't know his neighbor. I don't know where David lives. I've never been to his house, nothing. But the car was on that driveway for, I think, 8 months. And the day after we did the Huna, the car was gone. He then says a couple of months later, he said, we're talking. He says, oh, I love living here. Only fly in the ointment is this neighbor. It just causes problems for everyone, not just me. We're really if he were to sell up and move out. A couple of months later, me and a friend of mine, Suki, are running the Millionaire Mentor Day. David was there. He says, you're not going to believe this, which is what my breakthrough clients say a lot. And I went, go on then. I already knew what he was going to say before I said it. My brain was like, I know what's happened. He says, the neighbor has put the house up for sale. And at that point, we just fell about laughing, because he's like, you couldn't make this stuff up. He then has a guy called Lack Loy, who is training with David. So David is sharing with his group about the Huna, about the energy and the stuff. Lack gets in touch with me and he says, David has been telling me about the Huna. He said, I've been out of contract for 9 months. He's self-employed. So when you're out of contract, that means you're not working, basically. And he says, I'm coming to the end of, the buffer that I put aside and I don't want dipping into my say. So we did some Huna over the phone. And also I happened to be at the Yes group the next day. Lack was there as well. So we're standing in the Yes group. Those of you who've been, it's super crazy and noisy. The music's going, people are dancing, everybody's hugging and la 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 la. And me, I just stood in the middle of all of this and I'm like, 5 minutes, job done. Next day, get a call from Lack saying, you're not going to believe this. Go for it. And I knew exactly what he was going to say. He said, a contract that's dried up, disappeared, gone. He said, they got in touch. They want me to start tomorrow. And he's like, he was just so taken aback because he says, okay, do you mind if I start on Monday? Because when you've been out of work for 9 months, he's got a wife, he's got kids in the routine now of taking the kids to school and picking them up and all that sort of stuff. So he's got to talk to his wife and they got to, sort out another routine and get ready for work. So he starts on a Monday. That was probably 3-4 years ago now. The man has been busy ever since, which is just really fantastic. So one of the things he said, you're not going to believe this. You have an amazing ability and it's having miraculous effects. I knew there was a block and now it's gone. And I'd said to him, because we were talking on the phone, I said, do you mind if I share that with my clients? And so this is a part of our messenger chat where he says, yes, of course, Marilyn, anything to spread awareness of this amazing spiritual technology. And he was also confirming, because I was like, was it 7 or 9 months? And he's like, no, I was out of contract for 9 months. So it can be miraculous. And those of you who are a part of my online membership group, every year I run a free 1-day workshop for the members who are based in the UK. And we had somebody at the group last time, and she was the inspiration for my Power of 4 program, because over a period of a year, she'd done a soul plan reading, angel tarot, future life progression, and also breakthrough coaching stuff. And she said to me, apparently, I don't really remember what I said, I do something every month called Tarot Tuesday, where I do Facebook Live tarot readings free of charge for anyone who wants a reading in the membership group. And and during a private tarot reading we've done, apparently I'd said to her that you will be offered a job, 2 jobs, and you will have to choose. They'll be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So she goes for an interview, she gets offered a job, fine. She's walking back from the interview, she meets a colleague that she used to work with, because she, unlike, she wasn't out of contract, she'd been taken redundancy, so had some time off to regroup. So she, after the redundancy, decided to go back. She'd been for an interview, she's on the way home, she meets a colleague that she used to work with. He said, what are you doing here? She said, oh, I was at an interview. And he said, oh, I didn't know you were looking. And he offered her a job right on the spot. So now she's in a position where she offered 2 jobs. There's this bidding war going on because they both want her, and she had to choose. And she's like, Marilyn. And then she's talking about stuff that came up in the future life progression session. And she's talking about stuff that we talked about as part of the soul plan. Oh, that was it. She shared with the group. In the soul plan, you kept saying, I'm a teacher. And I'd explained to her that teacher doesn't mean you stand up in front of a room, in front of a blackboard or a whiteboard or a screen and teach, but it means that you're here to impart information to others, and they maybe see you as a teacher, and that didn't resonate. She starts a job and she was assigned a mentee. So she's helping this guy out. The mentee then says to her, you're such a great teacher. And it just resonated because she's like, oh, Marilyn said that in the soul plan. She kept saying it in the soul plan. Fine. Then a couple of weeks later, the mentee comes up and says, my friend is also working in such and such department. He's got a mentor, but they're not as good as you. Can you be his teacher? And she said, when she heard those words, she was like, oh my God, oh my God. And so it can have the most miraculous effects. And we had someone else in the membership group that I did a Huna and Access Consciousness session with. And she, a bit like Lack, 9 months out of contract, she would get the interview, she would go for the interview. Nearly. That went on for 9 months. So she does a Huna and Access Consciousness session that we did an hour, and she then sends me a Facebook Messenger message saying, I've got a problem. I was like, oh gosh, what's happened? She said, Marilyn, I've just been offered not 1 job but 2. So now she's in the same position where she's got to choose, and I'm just like laughing. And Lack, I remember about 1.5 years later, we're all out for dinner, a group of us. I said, hi Lack, how you doing? Oh man, I'm so busy with work. And just to hear him say those words, he didn't realize, because when we met, the problem was there was no work. now he's almost too busy with work, and he's been working busy ever since. So, you know, very, very cool, crazy stuff can happen. Something about Kay Westmoreland, the conscious accountant, who was in a very serious plane crash, nearly fatal. Unfortunately, her partner was killed in the crash. She was minutes away from death. That's a whole other story. I've written a whole blog about it. And she was left with brain damage. Now, she could function and found strategies to work around it, but she was never herself again. And she'd been saying for 7 years, I really should do your photo reading. I really must do your photo reading. Will the photo reading help me? And this went on and on and on. And if you ask me a question, I'm going to chase you. I'm not going to be ringing you up or emailing you going, hey, you said you wanted to do photo reading. When are you coming? It's not my style. So eventually, after 7 years, she comes to the conclusion it would be a good idea. 2.5 days. She goes out to a client meeting. So it's Friday evening, Sunday. Of course, if you're doing the 2-3 day online certification, you'll start whenever you want to start. You can start as soon as today. But in terms of the physical workshop, we finished on the Sunday night. Now, we finished at 10 o'clock at night, not because I overran, but because the group buzzed that they were just there talking until, you know, 10:30. So at 10 o'clock, Kay's like, oh my God, I've got to move the boat. So she heads off. She has a meeting the next day. In email, she says, I was back to my old self. I was thinking clearly. I was thinking straight. Everything was clear. I was back. A couple of weeks later, she's in a meeting with a mutual friend called Nick Haynes, who he knew of the brain damage, didn't know anything what she'd be reading. And she said, in the middle of the meeting, Nick looked at me and says, Kay, what's happened to you? You're back. She then did the photo reading mastermind group, 6-month mastermind program. We're probably 3 or 4 months in. She said, I had to see my mum yesterday. And she looked at me and says, Kay, you're back. That was miraculous, but that all happened after 2.5 days. And a big part of that was the kind of Huna energy, just to start shifting that. Because I was diagnosed with what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's in my 20s. And my doctor says, nothing I can do for you. All I can do to help you is give you a medical certificate about your condition, and you can send that to your examining body, and maybe they'll give you extra time in your exams. And so that's the letter that you can see on the screen from the ACCA, confirming for paper 11U, telling me when it will start, and your medical details are now on file, and you are not be required to submit these for future sessions. However, due to a large number of candidates, yada, yada, yada. Because people often go, really? I'm like, really? And I had a very similar experience where I went from being the worst person in the class when I turned up for the practitioner, because at that point I was in the midst of all of this stuff. 2.5 weeks later, I went from the worst student to the best student, in terms of, I think, the only person out of a room of 75 people who had no corrections on their test. And then what would have been 7 months later, in May 2001, I was the very first person to finish my NLP trainers training exam. That's an 8-hour closed book exam. I was finished in 3 hours. And there were people still writing at 6 o'clock who didn't finish. And these were people far more experienced than me, because when I did the NLP practitioner, I didn't even know what NLP was. And, you know, less than a year later, I'm doing my trainers training exam. And so, you know, it is just kind of miraculous. And we also have things like, this is where it comes in. This is one of the, actually, this is Suki's lovely wife. She did the photo reading workshop, her and her daughters, because Suki attended it. Partly, he was just like, I'm sending my whole family. Photo reading is amazing. When can you run a private group? And I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. So this is one that his wife and his kids came on, and a couple of his clients. And she says, talk about grabbing the bull by the horns. When you did the Huna healing on me, oh my God, I couldn't believe how accurate your diagnosis was. You didn't tell me you were a doctor as well as everything else. And that's kind of where what people call the channeling comes into it. Because I was, you know, saying things to her that I couldn't possibly have known about. Same with her daughter. And what was really crazy cool, but the thing with Pippa, I did it with the lights off, because they, you know, when I run the autumn photo reading workshop, because we do the bonus session from 7 till 8 on the Friday night. When I run that workshop, because I turn off the lights, and so it's dark, and people normally have their eyes closed, and I'm often standing behind them. And her daughters described to me, a bit like Pippa, the symbols. I did the water symbol over one of her daughters, and she said, oh, when you were doing the Huna, when you started, I felt like as a waterfall. Another one of her daughters, I did the fire symbol, and I don't know why I felt drawn to do it behind her shoulder. And she said, I felt like heat, like fire in my shoulder. And she said, it feels better now, because if any of you know Suki Wahiwala, he's got some massive dogs, guard dogs. And so she was out walking the dogs, and they saw something old, and so they yanked her shoulder. Now, I didn't know anything about that, but then she explained my shoulder was pretty much almost dislocated recently. It's been really hurting, and I felt the fire on it, and now it's all clear. So I was like, just crazy cool stuff happens. And just with, and it's a 1 hour session. I do an individual round of Huna for everyone on the photo reading workshop. And that's the sort of thing that happens for people as a result of it. The people who are asking about the Greg Braden thing, one of the things that also at the TCCHE event, I've been hosting it now for the last 3 years, in terms of being on stage, introducing all the speakers, interviewing the speakers, all that sort of stuff. And I said to the organizer, Richard, I said, do you mind if I do some before we start for day 2? And I just did probably about 5 minutes. So people didn't really know anything about me. They'd never heard of Huna. I didn't have time to explain. I just said, I'm going to do some energy clearing work. And all they know is there's this woman standing on stage in front of 550 people. That was it. Did 5 minutes, and I said, right, and now I want to introduce Lynn McTaggart. Lynn McTaggart comes on stage. Then I started, people coming up to me for the next 2.5 days. Oh my God, that was amazing. So one person said, thank you so much for the Huna and for everything, and how beautifully you held the energy of the room. Another person said, I attended the 4-day TCCHE event a couple of weeks ago. They sent an email. Although I found the speakers fascinating, your Huna work had the most profound impact on me. Someone at the event said, I did speak to you at the event, brackets in the ladies, because I couldn't go anywhere without somebody stopping me to tell me how miraculous it was and what had happened for them. And she's explained how I felt the energy around me and a sense of calm. But since then, I'm quite amazed at what has happened. And I think she might have been the one with the hot flushes, actually, because there's one woman who wasn't in the room when I did the Huna. They were sitting together, and they get flushes. They were sat there fanning and taking these like herbal tablets and all this sort of stuff, and just nothing was working. She said after I did the Huna, the hot flushes just disappeared, and she didn't need to use her fan for the next 3 days, and she didn't need the tablets. The woman who wasn't there for the Huna came back and sat next to her. She was fanning for the whole 3 days and guzzling these tablets like nobody's business. So there's some really incredible things that happened. And also with regards to the Greg Braden, at one point I knew I was going to be interviewing the speakers when I first did the event, what would be 3 years ago. And suddenly about 3:30 in the morning, I woke up, I was like, oh my God, what if there are no questions for the speakers? So, did some energy clearing, asked for a download, wrote questions for all the speakers, didn't really give it another thought. And then on stage, and what was supposed to happen was we're going to take questions from the audience. And then just as I'm walking, I'm just mic'd up, I'm just about to walk on stage. Oh, by the way, never mind the questions from the audience, because sometimes they're too specific. It's like, oh, my elbow's hurting. Dr. Joe Dispenza, what can you do? Or Bruce Lipton, my aunt's got cancer from your book in the biology belief. Blah, it's very specific. And so he said, can you do the questions? So I was like, thank goodness I have those questions. So I start with the questions. It's like the 10 speakers are lined up on the stage. I think I started with Lynn McTaggart, and then I went to, I think Doctors JJ and Desiree Hurtak were sort of third or fourth. And then I did the questions for Greg Braden. And then I came to Bruce Lipton. And I said, oh, Bruce, let me get the questions for you. And Bruce says, are there questions for all of us? I said, yeah. And he said, are there individual questions for all of us? I said, yes, there are. Then Braden, who'd already had his questions, he said, in front of 550 people, Marilyn, yes. He said, where did you get these questions from? And now I'm like, oh my God, what if he thinks the questions are rubbish? Why is he asking me this question? And I can't lie. So I says, well, Greg, funny you should say that. I says, this morning at about 3:30, I woke up and thought, oh my God, I might need some questions for the speakers. And so I basically just did a download and a mind map for all of you. And he went, they're brilliant. They're amazing questions. Thank you very much. I just sat back in his seat and smiled the whole time. I was like, oh my God. But part of that was getting into my interstate, setting the end, opening up that, what I call the vortex, and just having a download come through. So it really, really works in the most mysterious of ways. So hopefully by now, this is Suki when we were running the Millionaire Mentor Day. And so hopefully sense that this thing works in the most incredible and miraculous of ways. And with something like the Millionaire Mentor Day, that's business focus, about business and strategy and all the rest of it. And this was actually a statement from a lawyer and head of chambers, as we say in the UK. And he was, and for him to be touched and moved by the Huna, because he's one of the most meticulous, analytical, detail-oriented, logical people I've ever met. And he said, Marilyn, through applying the Huna and Access Consciousness, it quite simply creates simultaneously and in synchronicity with Suki's advice. And he was just talking about, you know, the way that it has changed his life. So you can use it in a myriad of ways, and so hopefully that has given you a really good taster. And for those of you in the membership group, you will know this is from Kate, and we'd done the membership group day. Actually, it was the Huna workshop, and her husband was there as well. And we got to about 4 o'clock, and he says, "Go on, tell Marilyn." And so I look around, and I didn't know any. Again, I went round to each person, just did some Huna, which is what we'll do in the workshop in a couple of weeks' time, because it's the same work we're going to be running that she had attended. And he said, well, Kate's been having physio for the past 18 months, so a year and a half. She's done physio, she's done osteopathy, she's done sports massage, she's done seen the doctor, and nothing worked. And she couldn't lift her arm above shoulder level. She just sort of do that. He says, go on, show Marilyn. And she just went and put her arm up in the air. And he says that's the first time she's been able to move her arm properly in 18 months. And all I did was like 5 minutes of Huna. So there used to be a TV advert. I don't drink, but there used to be a TV advert in the UK that was called, it said, Heineken refreshes the parts other beers cannot reach. And that's the way I feel about Huna. It does some crazy cool stuff. And then coming us now to the present, which is, you know, what this video is about. With the new program, the Raising Your Money Vibration. Before the program launched, nobody would have known this. I sat there, nobody had signed up yet. And I sat and I thought, okay, let's program so that when people come into the program, they have things happening already. The energy starts shifting and changing and moving, and people start getting results. So who did the program? I do the launch. Get an email on a Wednesday. She sent me a message saying, last night, Tuesday, I made the decision I'm going to join the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibration program. It's called something else then, because I was testing out the names. She then said, on the Wednesday morning, I signed up. She said, I then had an interview. She says, I've just landed a job, better job, more money. And then she says, did you Huna the program before we started? So I went, oh my God, you're not going to believe this, because I often say that to my clients as well as them saying it to me. And I explain the whole thing about Huna in it, and having, so when people will sign up, they'll have something and wonderful things happen that is in alignment for them, because everybody's going to be different. Just like everyone at the TCCHE, 550 people there. I cannot even begin to tell you the diversity of things that happened for people. There was one guy who had flown in from Japan, just got off a plane, walked straight into the training room. And it was a late night on the Friday. So we're going to be going till about 10. So we're having the break. And he says, I don't know if I can make it. And I said, and this was before I'd done the Huna on the Saturday. I says, well, look, I just like a thing called Huna. It can help you with your energy. Would you like me to do it? So he's standing there with his 3 colleagues. I think one of them was his wife, and then these 2 guys standing in the middle of the room. There's like 550 people all walking about, and there's me standing there going, and he's probably thinking, what the hell? And then I finished, did about 2 minutes. He looked at me and he went, Huna is better than Red Bull. Huna is better than Starbucks. And he was just like, whoa. Saw him the next night. How are you doing? He's like, he just said, Huna is Red Bull. Huna is better than Starbucks. Saw him on the Sunday night. So now he's had 3 very long days. And he just smiled and went, Huna is better than Red Bull. Huna is better than Starbucks. So it was crazy what was happening for people. So that was the first email where she was saying, oh my God, did you Huna the program? I then had another guy. We're doing, because as part of the membership group, he's a lifetime member. So there's a free breakthrough coaching session. So we're doing the session a couple of weeks ago, and he'd signed up and he said, did you Huna the online program before we started? Because I've already had money and a new deal come up that could be worth 3 figures. I'm like, well, funny you should say that. So I then relayed the same thing that happened. I then had an email from the lovely Pippa, who you've already met, and part of what she said, firstly and very excitedly, I've been contacted by a local business with the possibility of combining our skills to provide corporate experiences, and I say I'm super excited. She's out in Australia if any of you want to hire her to come into your corporation. She says, secondly, I plucked up the courage yesterday evening to ask if some of my clients had any contacts for me to run my meditations in the corporate environment, and a couple of them said they'll pass my deals on. And then she said, and thirdly, it came to me this morning that I am mirroring my mother's financial patterns more than I realized. So naturally, I'm keen to break those patterns and move forwards. So again, another person, because this was before we'd several weeks before we'd started the program. All they'd done is sign up. And then I had another email from some program. And so she said, I can free up my passion and ultimately my money channels. And it's because things are. She then says, your money program is working already, by the way. It's just that the money is coming in a channel I want to replace. Oops. So one that's been sitting in limbo, sitting dormant, the money's now coming in. And this was all several weeks before we started. And that really, I'm kind of going, oh my God, Huna totally works in mysterious ways, because I sat and Huna'd the program before we began. So it's just, incredible. And this is, some of the people that when I first, actually the top one is from someone who, because there's a 28-day money breakthrough program, and it's an e-coaching program. So every day for 28 days, you get an email, 2-page email, PDF with a series of exercises that take you through various processes. And this is one of the first people to go through it. And she also booked the money breakthrough coaching program, like one-to-one coaching sessions. And she said, for the first time in 4 years, both my business and personal accounts have positive balances above zero. I'm really happy to have reached this first milestone, and I'm sure it wouldn't have happened without your great support, Marilyn. When I remember when I got that email, I read the first line, I thought, well, that's not very impressive. And then I realized she'd been overdrawn pretty much every month for the last 4 months, borrowing from parents, borrowing money from friends, partners, yada, yada, yada. And so to have positive balances and be above zero when you're always overdrawn, that is significant. Another of my clients, his video is on my website, a lovely guy called he said his revenue is up by 300%, which is just fantastic. And that was doing a more traditional breakthrough session, but centered around money and finances and letting go of old paradigms and old beliefs. And if you follow David, you will know he's on a massive upward trajectory. So it's just really, really cool. So that's a little bit of what you can expect and experience. We've already looked at some of the Huna symbols, so we're not going to look at these, but basically it works with regards to the symbols. They all mean different things, and we will look at these in more detail. This is the actual Huna symbol itself, the full Huna symbol, which I'm wearing around my neck. So I purchased this when I was out in Hawaii. I'll explain the meaning of that symbol when we get together, but this is the one that you use for the third eye. There are various symbols that we'll use, and I'll explain them and we'll talk about them, and we'll use a few of them today, this webinar, just so you have that sense of the experiential. So I'm just going to check the Q&A, and then we're going to look at the access. So can Huna help open up the third eye chakra, or even connect the 2 points, i.e. short answer to that is yes, it can. So I feel like Barack Obama's team now. Yes, we can. But yes, you can. Now, one of the things about access consciousness, people might have heard it called the POD and the POC. So POD, POC, that means point of destruction, point of creation. And that's one of the questions that people ask in terms of the Huna, so access consciousness. So let's get into this. In terms of consciousness, created by a guy called Gary Douglas and his co-creator, who came on board a couple of years later, Dr. Dane here. It is about asking questions to bring up judgments, limitations, blockages, and the energy of what's not working for you. And it's designed to unlock those things, and it enhances your ability to receive without judgment, which is why I want to make it an integral part of the whole raising your money vibration thing, because a lot of that is about receiving. It's based on this thing called the clearing statement, which is where the POD and POC comes from. These are the two creators. And that's Gary Douglas, the man with the slightly whiter hair and wearing the white scarf. And then that's Dr. Dane here in the black leather jacket. So that was when I was out doing my level 3 Huna training with both of them a few years ago in London. So that's what they look like. In terms of access consciousness, for me, when I break it down and I look at it, this is Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here. This is my take on it, having looked at it and seen the miraculous things that were happening for my clients, going, what the heck is going on here? And so there's a bit about awareness, which I see as a perceptual positions where you get out of yourself and yourself and get over yourself. The whole thing about clearing judgments and limitations, that starts to touch on what I do with, let's say, the limiting belief work. If I was, I don't know, doing a timeline therapy session, for example, ending internal divisions, that's more like a part integration. There's the whole thing where it changes your points of view, where it touches on your values. There's the thing where it's working on your mind in terms of your fears and your phobias, and the question then gets you into the linguistics, and a lot of it is centered around the linguistics of whatever we're going to be clearing. The clearing statement is right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. And we'll get into that more when I run the Huna one-day workshop and explain a little bit about what that means. But the good news about the clearing statement is you do not have to know what it means. Your job is just to go, yes. So when I'm running a workshop, I get people to say yes out loud. So when we do a belief change work on the Huna workshop, and I'm going around and saying, right, you know, who would like to clear blockages, or not believing you're good enough, or not believing you're capable enough, or, you know, you have a bad memory, and whatever it is. And then I formulate a lesson out of that. So for example, the question that I'm asking the group might be, anywhere and everywhere you feel that you're not worthy, will you now destroy and release and resolve and uncreate all of that? If the group are going, yes, I want to release that, they'll go yes and say yes. And then I run the clearing statement, right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. And as crazy as it sounds, I'm telling you, the first few times I use it with together as a combination. I had a lovely friend, some of you know her, a lovely lady called Amana Shaka. She was stressed because she had an £800 tax bill, didn't have the money to pay it. The tax office are ringing up and writing her letters and saying they're going to be calling enforcement agents. She knew what to do. And I said, look, I've just done, that's when I just done the access consciousness training. I said, look, I've just done this thing called access consciousness. If you like, I'll do a session with you. So we did 15-20 minutes on the phone, and I combined that then with the Huna. And that was the first time I'd really combined them. And so we did the phone thing. She's on the phone, I'm on the other end going, and anywhere and everywhere you're feeling stressed, will you now destroy and uncreate it? She's saying yes. And I'm like, right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyond. Anywhere and everywhere you don't know where you're going to get the money to pay this bill, and it's causing you stress and distress and anxiety and worry. Anywhere and everywhere you're terrified, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate that? She's like, yes. And I'm like, right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc, shorts, boys and beyond. So this goes on for like 15 minutes. Later, I'm on a boat, HMS something, in London, just down the road from Blackfriars Station. I'm having a meeting with Suki Wahiwala, Paul Vernon and Ian Young, talking about a project we're going to work on together. So my phone was switched off. Suki then says, let's go to dinner. So Suki and I went to dinner. We sat down at the restaurant. While he was coming to see, I switched my phone on. And there's like 7 missed messages from Amana. I said, I'm really sorry, Suki. I'm just going to have to make a quick call. So I then ring her back. What's going on? She says, oh, you're not going to believe this. That's what they always say. And she said, I got a letter today. I could tell immediately, the brown envelope, I could tell immediately it was from HMRC. And she said, oh, for goodness sake, I've already agreed to pay you. What more do you want? She opens the letter and there's a check for £826 for a business that she and her sister had run years ago, and it was dormant. She says, I don't know what the money's for, but they sent me this refund. So basically she took the check for £826, paid it into her bank, and then wrote HMRC a check for £800. And that's when she was like, oh my God. Another incident where she'd lost her contract. So went on to working like some, I don't know, hourly rate, £10 an hour, whatever it was, which is very different from earning several £100s a day. And I said, well, should we do some Huna and access around it in terms of opening up the space to get a new contract? And I said, what is it you want? So she spoke, this is where the speak it into existence thing started to come into play. If you've watched the video on my website. So she said what she wanted. I said, let's do some clearing around that. So we did the right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pop pop, short spoils me on, we clear the energy. And she then gets in touch, so she's not going to believe this. So I went into work today and they said, oh, Marna, can we have a word, please? She thought, oh, here we go. They've already cancelled my contract. So I'm now, earning £10 an hour, whatever it is. They're probably now going to say that's coming to an end, but let me what's going on. So she goes into the office, she sits down. And they said, oh, we've got a new piece of work and a new project that's come in. We wonder if you'd be interested. And what she said to me is, I want to earn £250 a day and I want to stay for as long as I choose. I want to decide how long the contract is for. Any of you who have been contractors, you will know that sometimes you have to take what's being offered and sometimes you're on a rolling month by month basis. You never quite know when the contract will be. It's not in your control. So she sits down and they said, Amana, we've got this new project. Wonder if you'd be interested. We can only pay you £250 a day. Now her brain is like, whoa, we just talked about it on the phone with Marilyn. And then they said the magic words. How long would you be willing to stay for? So she's now in a point where she gets exactly the day rate she wanted. And they're asking her to name the length of the contract. Seriously. And then at the other end of the scale, this was a lovely friend of mine, Gina, who had done some dental work in and I get a phone call. I didn't have caller ID, so I just pick up the phone and somebody is like crying, and I thought it was a prank call. I was like, because it's like, the Oprah ugly cry. When I realized it's Gina, and I said, what's going on, what's happened? And she's just been to the dental hospital. They've lacerated my gums. I'm in so much pain. And Gina has a very high pain threshold. Those of you who came to the bamboo healing workshop and saw him doing actually I've got a stick here, and saw him doing the bamboo healing on her, she just sat there like a walk in the park. So for her to be crying like she was, I was like, oh, this is bad. I said, scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with the pain? She went 100. I was like, okay, it's bad. So I said, okay, are we good to just, your focus on the road, driving safely, blah, blah. So we put all those parameters in. I said, are we good to do some Huna and access? So I then started saying, anywhere and everywhere you're in unbearable pain, will you now release and resolve and destroy and uncreate it? She said, yes. I'm like, right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 for pop shots. 5 minutes later, I noticed she's talking with clarity. I said, where are we at now? Scale of 1 to 10. She went, it's probably a 4 or a 5. I need another minute or two. She's like, anyway, thanks, Marilyn. I feel so much better now. Catch you later. Bye. She's like, on the road. Crazy. And when I first put the combination together, I asked for volunteers. And so I sent an email out to my newsletter list. I said, I'm looking for 4 or 5 volunteers. I want to do a taster session with you for the Huna and access, no charge, just have the time to do it and give me feedback. So a friend of mine volunteered her boyfriend. Never met her boyfriend. He doesn't know anything about me. We do a 45-minute session and I just say, well, look, I don't know what she's told you, but this is what we're going to be doing, blah, blah. And he just says, well, I'm up for it, because he's been at home depressed, closet writer, wasn't writing anything, did not even have a blog. We did 45 minutes of Huna and access. She got home that evening, got an email. First line was, what have you done, boyfriend? I was like, oh my God, what's happened? So I opened the email. She says, Marilyn, he's out of bed, he's dressed, he's motivated, he's started a blog from scratch, like gone on to WordPress or whatever it is. He used, and she says, not only has he started the blog, he's published 4 articles. We did 45 minutes. It's a little bit bonkers. So, it really, what can I say? What can I say? And, we've had crazy cool things. This was Keith, actually. It was a different workshop, the Mind, Body, Spirit, Energy Fest, when I very, very first ran it, what will be 10 years ago now. And Keith had some very specific requirements. One of them, he wanted to plan at the front of the house. What happened with that was just beyond. Seriously, I'll tell you about it on the Huna workshop. One of the things that he wanted £10,000, needed a lump sum, was going to an event where they were doing a raffle. 100 people there. It's Utility Warehouse. If you've ever been to one of their shindigs, you'll kind of know what that's about. And they had, I think it was like 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, top prize 10,000. So, at the dinner, they do the prize draw, 500, blah, blah, blah. They pull the prize draw for £1,000. Keith wins. And he's like, thank you very much. And the amount Marilyn and I spoke about and put into the timeline was £10,000. And this is a good start. Fine. So now they do the build up at the end of the night. Who did £10,000? You don't have to guess, because there's a picture of him on the screen holding the check with his name on it. 25th of March 2012, and he did the Body Spirit Energy Fest in December 2011. So this is just 3 months later. So all I can say is this thing has power. Now I will say, have I put it in? I hope I put my little disclaimer in. Yes, I have. I will say that the program, particularly when we get into the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibration series, it in no way offers financial advice. It is for entertainment purposes only, and participants are responsible for the actions that they take. And also, let's say with people like Keith did a 3-month coaching program with myself and Gina. With David Key, he did a 1-day breakthrough session. With the lovely lady who was offered 2 jobs, she did effectively now the Power of 4 program. With the emails that I showed you, all they did was sign up for the program. We haven't even started yet. And so depending on where you're at, and depending on how much time and energy you're putting into your transformation work, that is also going to have a bearing on what you get. And Amana hadn't done any of the trainings. We were just doing individual stuff on the phone. Black Lloyd, that was just a phone call. So it's going to depend on a number of factors, and everyone is so different. And I always say that Huna works in very mysterious ways, and my intention is that it works for people in the way that it needs to work for them. So just want to leave as a thought for those of you who are there with the money beliefs, just to give you an idea kind of what we then turned into the statements. Read amongst yourselves for a moment while I rehydrate. These are, because what I did, an anonymous quiz, and just asked people, what are some of the beliefs that are holding you back when it comes to money, when it comes to manifesting, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to abundance? And these were some of the statements. Like confidence in the ability to manifest, don't have enough, lack, the debt scarcity paradigm, I'm not worthy of having money, I don't know if it's possible to change, I don't believe it's possible, afraid to spend money because I can't make more, scarcity mindset, flow of money always, and some, there's a theme there as well. So I just want to give you an example of how the access consciousness works when you have those statements. So for example, let's just start with the grey section. So for example, what I would be saying, everywhere you lack confidence in your ability to manifest and create and generate money and wealth and income and abundance, I will be saying, will you now destroy and uncreate it? If you're willing to destroy and uncreate it, and you're where it's okay to say yes out loud, say yes. If you're sitting on the train with your headphones on, or in the middle of Starbucks listening to your phone, or plugged into your laptop or your iPad, sitting in the middle of those places going, yes, 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 might be a little bit weird. So in those instances, say yes in your head. When we did this webinar a couple of days ago, where we went through all of these beliefs and did Huna and Access around all of that's in the part 1 recording, if you haven't already listened to it. We had a lovely guy on the webinar. He was actually our proxy yes man, and he was typing yes into the webinar, which was just fantastic. So if you're in your own space, you say yes as we create the clearing statement. So I would say, for example, anywhere and everywhere you're in a place of lack, you're in a place of scarcity, and you never have enough money, will you now release, revoke, and destroy and uncreate all of that? If the answer is yes, you say yes, and then I run the clearing statement, right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pops, shorts, boys and beyond. So we went through all of those statements and a few more, clearing the energy around that for the part 1 money belief session. But that's basically take the statements and turn. Actually, I think, let me check, have I put a handout in there? Let me just have oh yes, here we go. So what I'm going to share into the webinar room, for those of you here live, I don't think it works on the recording, what you should have got, I think it maybe either appears on or goes into the bottom bar of your PC, I think depending on what device you're on, I've just in, which has the clearing statement and has some suggestions about how you can actually use the clearing statement. So have a play around with And there's also an example in there from Mark, the very, very first person who booked, because I said, look, I'm going to run some half price sessions for those of you on my e-newsletter list, because I'm testing out this Huna and Access Consciousness combination. Volunteered, and so I've done a write-up of his experience of going through that. And if you're actually watching this as the video webinar replay, I don't think you're going to get the handout, but if you go to my website, it might be on this page or testimonials page. I think it's on testimonials page, but one of those two places, there's a video of Mark and also a write-up of his experience of the Huna and Access Consciousness, combination. So check that one out as well. If you want to do the one-day Huna workshop, for those of you who are listening to this video, and I'm going to leave it open for about a week or two, so you can kind of catch the recording. If you wanted to attend, promo code I set up is HA in Huna Access, HA20. And actually, it's only going to be a brief for a week because the prices are changing in a couple of days. So yeah, if you're watching this as a recording and the prices look nothing like they are on the screen, don't be emailing me because they're going to change. They're just the launch prices at the moment. But if you go to hunaintro.eventbrite.com, enter the promo code. Let's see if this one works. Where did I put that? Hold on. See if this fancy platform works. Yes, I think it does. So what I think will happen is something will appear on your screen. And so if you want to do it, the code should be on your screen, HA20, and that will take 20% off for you. And so you just click that button, it will take you right through to if you wanted to do that. So that is that. So just going to do that at some point. I'll queue that up in a bit, and maybe, I don't know if it will stay in the chat, but just in case it does, I'm going to get the link and put that into the chat so that you have it there as well. And if I can copy the chat over, it should be there. So if you're watching this and recording more than a couple of days, it will be a completely different price. So just ignore what's on the that's just the kind of the launch prices. And also, if you wanted to do the 10-part Raising Your Money Vibration program, it's a mix of live sessions like the video we're doing now, play recordings if you can't make all of the dates. There are also going to be some MP3 downloads, launch prices available at the moment. Ignore that in terms of if you're watching this beyond a couple of days time, completely different price. And again, I've set it up, use the same promo code HA20, and I think if I've done it correctly, let's do that. Yay. And so for those of you who are live, let me know if it is on your screen, but there also should be something on your screen where it has got the webinar. It says buy now. There's a link, a reminder of the code HA20. So if you just put that in, what it will do is so that should be on your screen right about now, and I will find the link for that one as well and put it into the chat. So hopefully that then goes into the recording. As I said, if you're watching this as a replay, it'll be a different price, but it will take you through to the same thing, and it will just be whatever the prevailing price is. I think that's the one. Moneyvibration.eventbrite.com. Oh, brilliant. Andrew says, yes, I can see it. What day of the week is it? Oh, now, Susan, I think you're abroad. So if you're talking about the one-day Huna workshop, that one is taking place in real time on the 11th of May. So a couple of weeks from now. If you're talking about the video webinar, I ran that last weekend. So it's now a case of the replay recording. So it's whatever day you want if it's the video webinar. And for those of you who are on this side of the pond, in the UK, it's the 11th of May for the actual physical workshop. But the video webinar is now on demand. So once you've purchased it, you just go straight in and watch it. And I've done it in two halves because we have the morning session, we have a break for lunch, and then we have the afternoon session. But both of those sessions are now available as on demand. So that's in terms of the date for the for that particular training. Right. So Are you up for a round of Huna clearing? Right, let's see. Susan says perfect. Cool. I think I saw something here about Huna. Any chance we can do Huna around a change to a better work opportunity, moving to Toronto at the end of this month, leaving my current job, and what can I do acting career? Thank you very much. So let me just move that over onto that page. Oh, see, I've started thinking about Huna and running the symbols. So that if you literally, I've just broken out into a massive sweat because what happens with the Huna energy is quite hot energy. I'm just going to open the window. Give me a second, because man, it's like what was that song? It's getting hot in here. Hold on a minute. Let me do this. Oh, but yeah, seriously, it's almost like you turn on the heat. You turn on the heat, and it's just like woo. Right. So that's that. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to check and see if there's anything else in there. One thing I will say before we get started, and I just kind of look through what I've cut and pasted in. If you haven't had any water in the last hour or so, my suggestion is stop and have some water. And if you need to go and grab some water, do that now, because you want to be well hydrated with regards to these processes. So if you need a water break or a little bathroom break, go and do that now. And of course, when you're doing the replay recording, you can press the pause button. And let me just double check there's nothing else in there that I've missed. Hello, Chris. Thank you for joining. Okay, I think we're good. And let me ask. No. Guess 980. Can you speak more slowly with the clearing statement? No. One of the things I found to be true of all of this work, particularly when I'm doing the NLP hypnosis breakthrough session stuff. Okay, let me give you an analogy. Maybe this will help explain it a little bit better. I used to be a massive fan of Formula One in the Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello, Nika Hakkinen days. And there was a woman called Louise Goodman. She was going to be going onto the track during race day, like Sunday race day, not the practice sessions, race day. And she was going to be doing a real life pit stop. And if you watch Formula One, you will know those races can be won and lost on a pit stop. It's crucial. And I'm watching this. This was way before I was into what I'm into now. But with hindsight, and even then I found out, they were on the Saturday practice day and all the rest of it, they were talking her through what she was going to be doing. And they were making mistakes. Now, these are the guys who will strip down and rebuild a Formula One car in 7.2 seconds. And they were making mistakes when they were explaining it to Louise. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then what I realized is when it's race day, when the pressure's on, you just do it. You're not thinking about it. It's not a slow process. It's like bang, 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 bang. And before you know it, Michael Schumacher's car is in, it's stripped down, the wheels are off, the wheels are back on, windscreen, it's just bang, gone. And it's like, whoa. When trying to do it slowly and explain it to her, it was analytical. They were making mistakes. They were getting it wrong. They were jarring the system. I have found exactly the same thing to be true of transformation work. Many of you will know, you might have seen Annika post on my page the other day where I was talking about, the epic session that we did with the money beliefs. And she said, and I stayed awake, because the thing with Annika is she normally just she's completely gone. And often my clients, when I'm doing breakthrough sessions, they'll say, I didn't hear what you said. Or I'll say, take a deep breath in and exhale, and at a rate and a pace that's comfortable for you, open your eyes. I'll open your eyes and go, oh, I missed it. What did you do? And I go, well, how did you know to open your eyes? And I go, well, I heard that. But they completely miss the rest of it. And I'm really happy about that. Or it's so fast that they can't keep up with it. And I'm really happy about that. Because one of the things about the human mind is when you go too slow, you can't help but overanalyze it. You can't help but try to second guess it. you can't help but try to do something or make something happen, and that jars the system. And I have found that clients then really don't get a good result. When it's too fast for them to even keep up, part of their brain, their conscious mind just goes, what the heck, whatever, I'm gone. And it just can't keep up. And then what happens is people's perceptual defense come down, and you can actually do the change work. And you guys will also know from the photo reading and all that sort of stuff, where people go, oh, it's to this, it's to that, can we do this? Or can we, are just like, you know what, it's too noisy, I'm going to make it a little bit noisier. If it's too fast, I'm going to make it a little bit faster, because that's the way people get a good result. So that's a very long answer. I could have just said no, but that sounds a little bit rude, but that is why. Trust me, I've tried every permutation over the last 18 and a half years generally, and also with regards to the Huna and Access. And I've only been doing the Huna and Access combo for probably the last 5 or 6 years, and not very long in the grand scheme of things. Well, that is quite a long time, you know, but you know what I mean, compared to 18 and a half years. And I've found that when things are too slow, we might as well just be having a chat over a cup of coffee. And many people will know you can talk from now till Christmas about your problem. Doesn't necessarily make it. All it does is gets people deeper into a hole. And so the reason why this is what I call fast and furious is because that's the most effective way to bypass all of those channels and get straight in there and make a difference. So so one of the things I'm going to be asking you, number one, just notice how you're feeling. And you might notice in terms of mindset, stress levels, your physical body, mental chatter, emotional well-being, and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 equals meh, and 10 equals you feel amazing. Then what I'm kind of interested in, I have created, if it's all live, oh yes, here we are. So a little poll is going in for those of you who are here live. I want you just to notice how you're feeling, number one, and just think, what would be the thing that would be most useful for you in terms of Huna? Would you want to calm things down? Would you want to shake things up? Want to create a greater kind of source, divine connection is the way I've put it? Or would you want to have more motivation? Would you want to have more energy? So that's one of the things to think about as well, because then depending on that will depend on the different symbols you can use to have that happen. So that's just a little one to have a think about also. So connect to source, lab, you loso. You know, with regards to this, write it down. You might want to write down how you're feeling, and you might want to write down the thing you'd like to have more of. And then I will always be saying, how will you know when you've achieved that? How will you know when you've got it? How will you know when it's done? And write that down. The reason I say write it down is oftentimes this kind of work, the changes happen. You don't necessarily get the lightning bolt that thunder doesn't necessarily come down and strike the earth and make it shake. It's more like the water energy, the ripple effect, the flow energy, where it is seamless and people don't even notice when the change happened. They just know they're different. And I had the experience at the membership group workshop last year, where somebody had found the workbook that she'd used. I think she'd filled in some notes at the Mind, Body, Spirit, Energy at the health transformation workshop that I ran, which will be coming up as a video webinar. I'm not necessarily going to run another in-person event with that, but I'll run it as a video webinar at some point. And she found that she was using the same notebook, and she flicked back through some of the pages. She's like, oh my God, I'm reading what I wrote back then. I can't even believe I would have written that. And I can't believe how much things have changed in just the last couple of months. And so it's very easy not to remember your starting point, because the change is just, it just gently ripples in. And it just is. And that's also really nice, because that's the way I'd like it to be. We don't need wailing and gnashing of teeth to have big transformations. So that's one I would say as well. But just kind of, you know, write it down so you have a little note for yourself in terms of what you want to do. Let's see. Oh, hold on. There's a question in the private bit. Let me just have a look. See. Price ended. Tell me more about that. I wonder. But tell me more about when it says price ended. Yeah, add a little bit to that. Tell me which one and what it is, and I'll have another look-see when the webinar is over. Thank you. And I will check that out. Right, let's see. So are we ready to get into the vortex? One sec, let me just follow up on this one and see that. Which one? Cool, fab, okie coke, marvelous. And let me go back to here. So yes, we're ready. Okay, so let me pull up the first said when we started, because I'm going to start with creating some statements out of that. Right. Oh, also, back to one other thing. Just start thinking about if you've got any final questions, if you've got any final queries, we will do those after this. And so rather than me saying, oh, have you got any questions, then you have to think about it and type them in, just start thinking about it. And as they come to you, just type them in, and I'll cycle back round to those before we. Right, let's see. Okay. All right, so let's just get the ball rolling then with this ancestral piece. Okay, actually, we're going to start with that. So anywhere and everywhere, you feel as though you have done everything you can think of and everything you can do to clear these old issues, whether they be past life, whether they be genealogical, whether they be ancestral, whether they be related to karma, whether they be related to this lifetime. Anywhere and everywhere you feel that you've done everything you can do, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? And if the answer is yes, you can say yes out loud, you can affirm it in your head, or if you want, you can type it into the chat. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc shorts, boys and beyond. And anywhere and everywhere you suspect that there is something ancestral going on, will you now release, resolve, and revoke and recant and rescind any of that ancestral stuff, any of the ancestral connections that no longer serve you in this lifetime? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc shorts, boys and beyond. And also what we're asking is, in terms of the change, in terms of the transformation, in terms of the releasing of the energy, we're asking that happens for you in a way that is right and healthy and ecological and for your greatest and highest good. And so for the people who need the thunderbolt, they'll get the thunderbolt. For the people who need the gentle ripple, they'll get the gentle ripple. But we're going to ask that the energy arrives and the change and transformation happens with ecology, such that you can carry on happily with your life, and those things will happen energetically in a way that's right for your system, rather than trying to make something happen in the way that it would happen for someone else. So just ask your inner mind if it is okay to do that for you now. Anywhere and everywhere you have a general sense of resistance to change, to transformation, to letting go, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety where it no longer serves you? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc shorts and beyond. And anywhere and everywhere you have maybe a core belief, an unconscious belief that you are not worthy, that maybe you're not good enough, you're not capable enough. Anywhere and everywhere you have that potential unconscious core belief, known or unknown, seen or unseen, conscious or unconscious, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety where it no longer serves you? Right, good and bad, or 9 pod poc shorts, boys and beyond. And any of the unconscious blockages, any of the unconscious baggage, any of the blocks and barriers from the past, maybe this lifetime, previous lifetimes, genealogical, ancestral, karmic ties, anywhere and everywhere those old ties and thoughts and beliefs no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate all of those in their entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod poc shorts, boys and beyond. And anywhere and everywhere you're carrying thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and judgments and limitations that don't even belong to you, will you now release, resolve, and revoke and recant and rescind all of those old beliefs, judgments, limitations that don't even belong to you, and return them to sender with consciousness attached. Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pod pocs, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere that everything you've done thus far has done nothing to shift, clear and change things in a way that makes a significant difference in your life and brings you the results that you've been choosing and aspiring to. Anywhere and everywhere where those blocks and barriers are no longer relevant, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 for pop, shorts, boys and beyonds. And the reason I say then, where I'm saying no longer relevant, there are times where something happens, this is where it appears. In terms of my understanding of the world at the moment and what I've seen, what I've observed and what I've lived through, my observation is there are sometimes things that happen and there's a lesson or a learning in there. If you haven't yet got the lesson or the learning, that's, I think, sometimes where things keep recurring. And so one of the things that I'm asking, if it no longer serves you in a way that's right and healthy and ecological for you, so the presupposition for your inner mind is that if it's no longer serves you, you've now got the links for that, so we can move on and let it go. If it still serves you in terms of you're still learning the lesson, there's more work to be done, or you need to go deeper to uncover what it is, we're saying let's not circumvent that process. If you don't get the learnings and you just can't, if you're like weeding the garden, you can pull the weeds up really fast and it looks really nice, but couple of days, couple of weeks, definitely a couple of months, the thing has come back again. And so it's getting in there and rooting things out. So we're asking for the intelligence of your inner mind. We're asking for the intelligence of your higher self to, number one, help you with that learning, those learnings, if now the time is right. And if the time isn't right, then now orchestrating it such that when you are in the right place and space and environment, those things will be brought to your attention such that you can now clear them. So just wanted to kind of say that as well, just in terms of, so your conscious mind can hear it, your unconscious mind already knows that, as is your higher self. Actually, and anywhere and everywhere where your brilliant intellect might also been getting in the way, anywhere and everywhere where in certain circumstances your intellect might be stopping and blocking the realization and the manifestation, the creation, the generation of what it is you're asking for and what you're choosing, anywhere and everywhere there's a blockage there, will you now release, resolve and destroy and create all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pot pops, shorts, boys and beyonds. Anywhere and everywhere there are blockages with regards to work, career, creating, generating and manifesting what it is you choose. Anywhere and everywhere those blockages no longer serve you, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that? Right and wrong, good and bad, all 9 pot pops, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere where certain situations and failures and disappointments and those nearly moments have potentially been eroding and impacting on your level of confidence, your level of self-esteem, your level of belief in yourself and your abilities, anything and everything that is related to and connects into and feeds off of, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pot pops, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere there has been the feeling of lack of support, the feeling of struggle, the feeling of trying and things not quite working out. Anywhere and everywhere that has been the pattern and that has been the case, will now destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety where it no longer serves you. Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 pod pops, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere there might even be a belief, a thought and mindset where you even wonder, is it possible or am I destined to have the things that I want to have? Anywhere and everywhere there's a blockage in that area, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of that in its entirety? Right and good and bad, or 9 pod pops, shorts, boys and beyonds. And anywhere and everywhere it's almost like you felt alone, you felt like there is a sense of struggle, you felt as though you don't know which way to turn, you don't know what else to do. So anywhere and everywhere it appears that your pathway has been blocked, will you now release, resolve and revoke and recant and rescind all of those blockages where they now no longer serve you in this lifetime? right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 for pop shorts, boys and beyonds. Let's have a look. And anywhere and everywhere, that sense of connection to self, that sense of connection to the divine, that sense of connection to source, that sense of connection to the earth, even that connection to the kind of the deeper, how will I say that? The way it comes into my head is the deeper yearnings of humanity. Anywhere and everywhere that sense of connection has been stopped or blocked or is not flowing, that lovely two-way flow that maybe you've been used to even before you came into this lifetime, anything and everything that's stopping and blocking that beautiful sense of flow, will you now release, resolve and destroy and uncreate all of those blockages? Right and wrong, good and bad, or 9 for pop shorts, boys and beyonds. And what we're also going to do with that is a round of Huna as well, in terms of alrighty. And with the Huna, there's nothing you need to do. You just kind of sit back and relax and receive. The thing I would ask you to do is, are you open and willing to receive the Huna in a way that is right and healthy and ecological for you, for your greatest and highest good? If you are open to receive it, you give yourself permission and you say yes. And they're also asking your higher self, is it okay for your higher self to come in and also assist you with the process? And your highest, and we'll talk about the prime directive of the Almakua, the higher self, on the one-day Huna workshop, so you understand more about what that means. But for now, you're just saying, hi self, is it cool, can you help me? And so you can just be kind of asking, but we talk about ways that you can enhance that connection on the Huna workshop. So if it's fine, just say yes. Right. And then if you've had your eyes closed, you can take a deep breath in and exhale. And then at a rate and a pace that is comfortable for you, you can open your eyes. And if you're sitting down, you can maybe stamp your feet on the floor just to kind of ground yourself. If you're lying down, you might pat up and down the arms, pat up and down the chest and the torso, just to kind of bring your energy back into alignment, back into the now, and then to kind of bring yourself fully present back into the place and the space that you are in. So first of all, do you have any final questions? There's just a quick poll. You can either say yes, no, or you're still thinking, and that will just give me kind of a sense of where. And it's kind of anything that we've touched on in this webinar, anything about potential next steps. So just kind of, so we got no, we got yes. So I'll check the chat. I've just seen a little bubble come up there as well. So I will have a look, see at that. And let's have a little scroll. Oh, Andrew says, Andrew Mondia says, wow, powerful. Glad you enjoyed it. Guest 980 says, wow, and thank you. What is the best thing to do to take in that healing? One of the things I will say is just notice what you notice. It's one that I often say to my clients. It's when I created a coaching card deck recently, that's gone into both decks. It's gone into the coaching cards deck. It's also gone into the money breakthrough deck, because that whole thing, and when I do breakthrough sessions with clients, I finish coaching session clients, I say, notice what you notice. I don't tell clients. When I first started doing breakthrough sessions, I'd see clients at home, and I started working in a therapy center, so they'll be leaving, and I go, notice what you notice, and they look at me and smile, but no idea what that means. What am I noticing? What am I looking out for? And I wouldn't say, because with a sense of just noticing what you notice, every single time you notice something positive, every single time you notice you're maybe thinking differently, your self-talk is different, your energy is different, what you're creating and generating and manifesting and putting into the world is different. What I would say from there is give yourself a metaphorical high five, pat on the back, do a happy dance, whatever you want to do, and acknowledge what you notice, because that in and of itself will start the snowball effect, and that's going to then start things rolling for you in really wonderful, miraculous way. Also say, just, notice how over the coming next few hours, next few days, next few weeks, even next 3 months and years, just notice the ripple effect. And the reason why I say that, my intention when I got into doing work and doing breakthrough sessions, because breakthrough sessions is pretty much 10 years I was in practice, where there were one day, come in at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, go out at 5:30, your life is completely different. It will never be the same again. And that's what I used to do. Just for the 10 years, those down, because I realized, number one, when I started working remotely and doing, because now 5% of the sessions I do are via telephone and via Skype, and I realized pretty quickly that that's a long time to be in one call. So we do blocks of 2, maybe 3 hours, or half-day sessions, that sort of, and bring those into the mix. And so one of the things that started to kind of do and kind of know is the intention that I had for people, which to have the changes ripple throughout their entire changes for the rest of their life. That was my intention. Got an email from someone a few years ago, and he said, hi Marilyn, my colleague is looking for an executive coach, and maybe looking at ways to come into their business, and I recommended you. He said, oh, by the way, I was meant to say to you, thank you so much. His words were, the changes and effect of that are still rippling throughout my entire. And I looked at his name and I'm thinking, I actually think I worked with him 10 years ago. And sure enough, I went back and checked my notes. 10 years. I had done the breakthrough session 10 years ago. Those changes were still rippling. That's cool. It can be in terms of the changes. And so Susan says, yeah, noticing the ripple effect, ... I like it. Cool. Andrew says, what are the next steps to further do more of this work? Does the money vibrations course work? Do more with Huna and Access conscious work? Yes, it does. So the reason I wanted to do this as a standalone session, because I'm partway through the session a couple of days ago for part 1. We've only done part 1 so far. We've got another 9 to go. And I thought, you know what, if I attempt to do this session in the middle of one of the segments, we're going to need like 4 hours. And I think that's a lot. And so that I thought, because it's going to be coming up, we're going to be using Huna, we're going to be using Access, we're also going to be doing things like the future life regression, we're going to do bits of past life regression, we're going to do the Ho'oponopono with the cord cutting, the energy clearing, all of that sort of stuff. But Huna and Access is going to also run as an integral part through, oh, that's a massive wasp, is also going to run as an integral part through the whole program. That's why I wanted to do this segment. So if somebody is coming into it, they've never done it before, they can watch this segment, get themselves up to speed with what it is, how it works, the ways that it can show up in your life, etc., etc. But it is going to be kind of an integral part of that. So yes, that's going to be part of it, and we'll be doing a lot more of it throughout the next 9 sessions. So, you know, that is that. Best next steps, I would definitely say, either if the Huna really resonates with you, you might want to do the 1-day Huna on-demand video webinar training. And if the money vibration side resonates with you, you might want to do the sign up for the rest of the 10-part program. Those I'd say would be really good next steps. And if you're more about the one-to-one work, then 2 things I'd recommend. A Power of 4 session would be brilliant. Breakthrough session would be fantastic. And the smaller starting point for that would be an ad hoc 1-hour breakthrough coaching session. And I'm also a massive fan of the soul plan, because that can be a diagnostic. Oh, by the way, for the person who signed up for the soul plan, have your message. It was Easter this weekend, so I'm kind of having a bit of time out. But while I'm on the subject, you can either go to the calendar page, and I'm going to drop that into the comments now. Pick one of the dates and times that suit you, and then I'll buffer that and make it a longer session, because a free consultation is 20 minutes. So do that. Or what you can do is just email me with some dates and times that you're free over the next week or 2. We'll schedule in your soul plan session. So I would say, if you've got no idea where to start and you're just like, I just need some guidance on next steps, a soul plan would be a brilliant way to do it. And if any of you want to book a free 20-minute consultation, I've just put into the chat my book online booking page. The website for that is www.bookme, BOOKME, .name, NAME / Marilyn Devonish, but it's in the chat for those of you who are there live. But, you know, next steps, if you want a sense of clarity and direction about life path, what might be blocking you in terms of your worldly challenges, spiritual challenges, what's your soul destiny, what you're here to do, I definitely say a soul plan reading. And if it's more about, you know, the breakthrough coaching side, then a 1-hour session would be a good start if you don't want to kind of do one of the programs. Actually, let me find that while I'm about it as well. Soul plan. So that's transformationstm.com / soul plan. I will put that into the chat as well. So that link is in the chat as well. Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for, you know, being here from around the world and across the globe. I really appreciate it. Fantastic to have you all here. Do keep in touch. You know, if you want to get into the magical vortex, I would definitely recommend joining us for the 10-part vibration program, or doing the one. That's a brilliant way to, you know, start consolidating what we're doing. And keep in touch. My email, website, we've talked about those. The blog is marilyndevonish.com. So the blog is a lot more dynamic than the website for latest updates. It's / Marilyn Devonish for things like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn. On Instagram, it's a NeuroSuccess Coach. So do follow. Do feel free to like and share stuff. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to just share maybe your experience of being on this webinar. You can drop that onto my Facebook page. I've got an open wall, or you can put it on your own page and tag me, and that's absolutely fine. Because like the post from Lackloy said, it's really want to spread the word about this wonderful modality, because I know this stuff can help people so much. And so it helps when other people who have experienced it have talked about it, rather than just me talking about it. So that would be brilliant. Susan says, thank you once again, Marilyn, for your energy. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining me. We're wishing you all a fabulous morning, afternoon or evening, depending on where you are residing in the world. Thank you so much for taking part. Our guest 980 says blessings to you. Thank you so very much from Oregon. I thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone who is watching this as a replay recording, maybe several years out into the future. Hope you found it useful, and I look forward to connecting with you all very soon. So catch you all later. Bye bye.